Chapter 1541. High Heavens, Immortal Emperor-level battlefield. This place was in ruins. The sea of stars and nebulas had completely collapsed. Everything no longer existed, whether it was the sun, moon, or stars. The shock waves from the battle between immortal emperors could resolve everything. Nothing was left here. Blood was splattering, flashing with shocking radiance. It contained unparalleled laws. This was the blood of an immortal emperor, the blood of a true immortal emperor. Every drop of blood could destroy myriad realms. Kill! The immortal emperors roared. Their voices shook the heavens and cracked the earth. Their killing intent pierced through the past and present. The battle between the immortal emperors had reached its climax. This battle was too tragic. In the supreme firmament of high heavens, the stars exploded into powder and completely dimmed. Blood splattered everywhere. It was a tragic sight. One of immortal Emperor Meng Hai's arms was still floating in the void. He didn't even have time to repair it. He had already been defeated twice because the opponent was too strong. On the other side, Luo Tianxian was also on the verge of collapse. She wasn't much better than Meng Hai. Her Emperor's sword was completely broken in the previous battle. Only half of it was left. Her lower abdomen was pierced through with a huge wound. Gray mist seeped out of the wound, preventing it from healing. At this point in the battle, everyone had been injured. Not only Luo Tianxian and Meng Hai, but the four immortal emperors on the strange side were also trembling. They were all bleeding profusely. Luo Tianxian and Meng Hai were both risking their lives. The two immortal emperors were attacking with all their might. Even though the strange side had the advantage in numbers, they couldn't completely offset it. Some of them even had their weapons damaged. Luo, you're dead. My race is eternal. You've killed me 3 times in the past, but what's the point? Today, I'm standing in front of you again. As for me, I only need to kill you once. That's enough. Today you're destined to die. An immortal emperor emitting a strange golden light sneered. Although he was also injured and bleeding, his injuries were too light compared to Luo Tianxian's. Boom! At this time, another strange immortal emperor arrived with a black axe in his hand. He slashed through the void and destroyed myriad laws, leaving another terrifying wound on Luo Tianxian's body, almost cutting her in half. The strange golden immortal emperor who spoke earlier also pointed his finger at Luo Tianxian at the same time. His finger, which contained a strange substance, once again left a bloody hole in Luo Tianxian's body. Do you know? In the past, we killed Ling in the same way. Whether it's the heavens or the high heavens, everything is ours. Clang. Luo Tianxian didn't say a word, and only responded with the most terrifying attack. She waved the broken sword in her hand, and slashed out a stunning sword light that split apart the black axe, and then pierced through the strange golden immortal emperor's chest. On the other side, immortal Emperor Meng Hai was in a similar predicament, perhaps even worse than Luo Tianxian. Although he was one of the stronger immortal emperors, he had no way to deal with so many opponents at once. Everything is coming to an end. Do you think that you or Kuan-Pung can run away? It's useless. Everyone has been divined by us. Everything is within our calculations. The high heavens is about to hold a grand ceremony, and everything will come to an end here. The strange golden immortal emperor was like a chatterbox. In fact, this was the only time he could be so high-spirited. In a one-on-one fight, he was absolutely no match for Luo Tianxian, and would be crushed. However, at the moment when he was at his proudest, the void suddenly exploded, and the river of time collapsed. A fist seal suddenly erupted from not far away. The terrifying fist seal was boundlessly domineering, and it directly shattered a large part of the void, causing the entire high heavens to wail in battle. The one who attacked was naturally Zhou Tong. He used the power of the 10 heavenly grotto heaven divine ring to conceal his presence. Once this technique was used, it was as if Zhou Tong was standing in a different world. Whether it was his presence or karma, Everything was hidden and cut off. Therefore, before he made his move, no one on the scene noticed that he had already arrived at the scene. Boom! In almost an instant, Zhou Tong's fist seal tore through the endless laws, broke through thousands of layers of profundities, and penetrated the chest of the strange golden immortal emperor. Taoist Zhou? Luo Tianxian, who was focused on fighting the enemy, was also surprised by the sudden appearance of Zhou Tong. Not only him, but Luo Tianxian's opponent, the Black Hatchet Immortal Emperor, was also shocked. He quickly retreated, afraid that he would be attacked inexplicably. How is this possible? The strange golden immortal emperor's expression changed drastically. He never dared to imagine that someone could approach him in such a place without him noticing. You're just a piece of trash. What are you pretending for? Zhou Tong's fist seal trembled, and immediately, a terrifying force spread out, spreading directly to the strange golden immortal emperor's entire body, and even to his primordial spirit. Finally, with a boom, this immortal emperor directly exploded in the void. However, the strange thing was that the aftermath of his explosion seemed to be completely frozen in the void. There seemed to be a strange domain around Zhou Tong that isolated everything. Regardless of whether it was the explosion of the immortal emperor or something else, everything was isolated from the outside world. Sure enough, as I guessed before, my 10 Paradise Divine Ring can exterminate immortal emperors and prevent them from being resurrected. Even the strange and ominous plateau can't revive them, Zhou Tong said silently in his heart. That thing that was similar to a domain was actually an alternative way of unfolding his 10 Paradise Divine Ring. In the past, when he unfolded his Divine Ring, he could still see something that looked like a halo. At that time, when the 10 Paradise Divine Ring was truly perfected, there would be a variety of ways to unfold it. It could be unfolded silently, forming an alternative world domain. It could also be unfolded directly in Zhou Tong's body, causing his every move to carry the most terrifying suppression effect of the world. It could also be integrated into his gaze, voice, and many other places. Now, what he was using was the world domain. In his world domain, the target who died could not be revived. To be precise, their revival required Zhou Tong's consent. He could only come back to life if Zhou Tong agreed to revive him. If he didn't agree, he would really die. The death of a strange, immortal emperor naturally could not be revived. Moreover, after digesting this immortal emperor, Zhou Tong could also feel that the origin power of the 10 Paradise Divine Ring had increased by a small amount. As expected of an immortal emperor, killing one can increase by a small amount. If I completely destroy all the strange and ominous creatures, I'm afraid the origin power of my 10 Paradise Divine Ring will increase by 30 to 40%. Zhou Tong estimated in his heart. However, I'll start with these immortal emperors. Zhou Tong's eyes revealed a look of excitement. In his opinion, these immortal emperors of the strange races were no longer strange and ominous. They were ginseng fruits, precious resources, resources that could make his world move forward. Chapter 1542. The blood, flesh, unknown substances, and primordial spirit fragments of the dead golden immortal emperor were all slowly dissipating. Everyone looked at this scene in shock. This immortal emperor who was blown apart didn't revive. His body fragments didn't gather together. Instead, they dissipated just like that. Although they didn't know what was happening inside due to the isolation of the world domain, they could clearly see that the fragments of the strange golden immortal emperor's body were crumbling further, as if there was some kind of terrifying power crushing every fragment of his body. Then, the golden immortal emperor slowly dissipated under this crushing force. He's dead? All the immortal emperors were shocked. This scene was beyond their expectations. It was too terrifying. Killing an immortal emperor with one punch, even if it was a sneak attack, was no small matter. At least they weren't confident that they could kill an immortal emperor with one punch, even if it was a sneak attack. Especially the scene of the golden immortal emperor's death. It was too terrifying. It didn't look like a normal death at all. Instead, it looked like he was eaten by something and slowly digested in his stomach. It was too strange. Even the strange and unknown races felt that this way of death was extremely strange. Whether it was the immortal emperors attacking Luo Tianxian or the immortal emperors besieging Menghai, they all retreated to the vicinity of the sacrificial ground. They retreated to the side of the strongest person in their group, Huang, who was emitting gray mist. Daoist Zhou, where's old Kunpeng and the others? Menghai asked after catching his breath. Don't worry, they're all fine, Zhou Tong said. That's good. Luo Tianxian heaved a sigh of relief. The last 20% of the living beings in high heavens were saved. You killed one of our race's end realm experts with a sneak attack. You're quite strong. It seems like you're the variable that the primogenitor mentioned. The gray mist immortal emperor on the sacrificial ground looked very serious. Boom! At this moment, the void not far away suddenly shook again. 3 immortal emperors appeared again. They were the White Fiend Immortal Emperor, the Black Blood Immortal Emperor, and the Red Hair Immortal Emperor that Zhou Tong had killed. During this time, they had resurrected from the plateau and returned to the battlefield. Buzz! At the same time, the space not far away shook again and 2 more people walked out. They were also Zhou Tong's acquaintances. The 2 immortal emperors that the Qilin killed in the Darkness continent had also appeared. These 2 celestial emperors had gone to the lower realms to oversee the situation. Now that the situation in the high heavens had changed, they had both returned. It could be said that apart from the strange golden immortal emperor that Zhou Tong had killed, the other 9 immortal emperors who had walked out of the plateau of the strange race had all appeared here. Looks like everyone who came out of the strange and ominous plateau is here. I wonder how many immortal emperors there are in their families. Zhou Tong's gaze swept across the 9 immortal emperors. When he thought up to here, Zhou Tong gazed at Luo Tianxian and Menghai, and he said, Fellow Taoists, stand back for now. I'll leave the remaining people to you. As for these people, leave them to me. Tao friend you. Menghai still wanted to speak, but Zhou Tong had already rushed forward. Clang! At the same time, a huge bell appeared above Zhou Tong's head. It erupted with an incomparably terrifying divine light. At the same time, the bell rang, and it turned into a rippling divine sword that slashed forward. The domineering bell had accompanied Zhou Tong for countless years. It was already an immortal emperor weapon, especially after refining the Qilin and the immortal Phoenix Life's natal divine weapons. It could be said that this bell had advanced to the immortal emperor realm earlier than Zhou Tong's original body. Pfft! This was too fast. The immortal emperor standing at the front was directly sent flying by the bell wave divine sword. Then, the terrifying shock wave merged into his body. In the process of flying backward, his entire body exploded, turning into a bloody mist and an unknown strange substance. Clang! After the attack, the bell wave rose again. The immortal emperor at the side reacted and immediately took out his weapon, a 9-colored pagoda, to resist Zhou Tong's bell wave. However, his strength was still not enough. At the first moment of collision, the 9-colored pagoda was blasted apart by the bell wave. Then, the bell wave rang again. Endless laws and ripples turned into a tsunami. The myriad realms in the heavens were bobbing up and down. Billions of immortal Emperor Tao laws turned into myriad realms in the heavens. They rumbled together and swept forward. The immortal Emperor whose weapon was shattered couldn't dodge at all. His entire body was drowned by the billions of realm seas formed by the bell wave. Zhou Tong's true body didn't even take action yet. Just the power that erupted from his Tao corroboration artifact already blasted apart an immortal emperor, even more so trapping a second immortal emperor in the realm sea waves formed by the bell waves, having the chance of being overturned at any time. Unfortunately, immortal emperors were ultimately immortal. The bell wave had already exceeded the range of Zhou Tong's world domain. The figures of the two immortal emperors soon reappeared. Immortal emperors were too difficult to kill. Even if Zhou Tong had the world domain, the ultimate killing move to deal with their immortal bodies, he could only use it in close combat. Kill. Zhou Tong continued to make a move. He suddenly shook his overlord bell. The bell wave was 10,000 layers, millions and millions of rays of light, shaking the void and surging time. Regardless of whether it was eternal or immortal, they all suffered the most terrifying impact at this instant. The bell wave was long and drawn out, like ripples in the void, lasting for a long time. The bell wave was 10,000 layers, like the water of time, growing and multiplying endlessly. The most shocking sound since ancient times spread through the myriad realms, through the long river of time, continuing to attack the few immortal emperors at the very front. Clang! Right at this time, the strongest immortal emperor, Huang, who hadn't made a move all this time in the sacrificial ground, couldn't watch this any longer and made a move. He held a divine sword in his hand, cleaving the void, severing the time, directly attacking Zhou Tong's overlord bell. He wanted to suppress Zhou Tong's overlord bell first, freeing the other immortal emperors. However, very soon, Zhou Tong's original body also made a move. He brandished his fist imprint, his true body directly attacking the sacrificial ground, wanting to completely eliminate the strange and ominous strongest immortal emperor. Rumble! After reaching the immortal emperor realm, Zhou Tong's fist imprint was peerless. His amplification power reached a terrifying level. The majestic fist imprint caused the sacrificial ground to tremble. His battle intent was unparalleled, and his fist imprint was tyrannical, illuminating the past, present, and future. It directly broke apart his divine sword, causing the strongest immortal emperor below primogenitor to cough out large mouthfuls of blood. Kill. The other immortal emperors also rushed over, attacking Zhou Tong at the same time. After that, with a loud boom, the two sides collided, causing the heavens and earth to crumble. The law energy of the great Tao burned like flames, all the laws of order collapsed as everything withered away. The sacrificial ground seemed to be unable to withstand the power of the two sides. Countless cracks appeared in all directions. Chapter 1543. Terrifying waves of energy reverberated in the sky above the sacrificial ground, illuminating the entire high heavens with a resplendent light. Luo Tianxian and Meng Hai were both stunned. Taoist Zhou has officially stabilized himself at the end of the road, but his strength is actually so terrifying. Something's not right. How can he have such strength right after stabilizing himself? Meng Hai was shocked. He's indeed strong, so strong that it's hard to understand. Even at my peak, I'm definitely not his match. If we meet, I'll be suppressed in a short period of time. Luo Tianxian was also shocked. Above the immortal emperor realm? No, he definitely hasn't surpassed the immortal emperor realm. Then, this strength is caused by his special emperor technique. Meng Hai said softly, he reminds me of Huang. He's the same as Huang. They're both extremely talented people with heaven-defying strength. With Taoist Zhou's strength, he should be able to hold on here. Let's first meet up with the old Kuan Pring and settle the remaining 20% of the living beings. When the time comes, we'll come back to help him. Meng Hai said in the end. Luo Tianxian nodded and immediately left with Meng Hai. In the sacrificial ground, Zhou Tong moved unhindered. None of the strange race's immortal emperors were his match. The ancient land that had experienced the test of time, sacrificed countless civilizations, and stained with countless blood couldn't withstand this level of battle. More and more cracks appeared, and it was about to disintegrate and explode. Boom! Soon, the void shook and another immortal emperor descended. This was an immortal emperor that had never been seen before. He had never appeared before, as if he had always been hiding in the back. With the appearance of this immortal emperor, the number of strange races immortal emperors went back to 10. He used all his strength to attack Zhou Tong. He wanted to stop Zhou Tong's charging speed. Boom! But very quickly there was a loud explosion. Zhou Tong's foot landed on this immortal emperor's body, and he actually directly exploded. This scene also made Zhou Tong somewhat stunned. This newly appeared immortal emperor seemed to be a little too weak. This person was clearly a peerless immortal emperor, but it seemed that he had not even fully grasped the immortal emperor law. His strength was not much stronger than the Kuan Peng ancestor. In an instant, Zhou Tong understood that this was definitely a strange and unknown new immortal emperor. A mere newly promoted immortal emperor dares to join this battle? Courting death. Zhou Tong sneered and punched the recovered immortal emperor. Boom! But soon, 4 figures appeared at the same time. They joined forces to cast a spell and blocked Zhou Tong's punch, saving the newly ascended immortal emperor. After this clash, whether it was Zhou Tong or the immortal emperor of the strange side, all of them retreated a certain distance. At this moment, the entire sacrificial ground was quiet. On one side were the 10 emperors with strange auras. On the other side was Zhou Tong, who was shrouded in a 10-colored radiance with high battle intent. For a time, the atmosphere here stagnated to the extreme, and the atmosphere was extremely oppressive. You can fight against 10 alone and still move unhindered. This combat strength is indeed correct. You are this time's anomaly. The strongest immortal emperor of the strange side, Huang, said. I have to say, if the progenitor doesn't make a move with our combat strength, we really can't keep you here. But after all, you are fighting against 10 alone. If we fight alone, we are no match for you. But we are all End Realm experts. You definitely can't fight against 10 of us alone, another strange immortal emperor said faintly. End Realm experts were extremely difficult to kill, especially after they saw Zhou Tong's world domain. They knew that Zhou Tong had a move that could obliterate immortal emperors. If they were on guard, Zhou Tong might not be able to seize the opportunity to kill them. This was because as long as Zhou Tong seized one of them and attacked fiercely, the other 9 would definitely not sit still and wait for death. They would definitely take the opportunity to restrain Zhou Tong's actions. Therefore, it was extremely difficult to have the opportunity to exterminate an immortal emperor like this. Our race has been immortal since ancient times. Today we will hold a grand ceremony for high heavens. Even if you stay here, it's useless. Our progenitor has already awakened. With 6 progenitors, that person called Huang won't be able to hold on for long. When our progenitor arrives, you won't be able to escape, another immortal emperor said. His voice was faint, but it clearly spread throughout high heavens. Luo Tianxian and Meng Hai, who had arrived at the Overlord bloodline, could not help but feel heavy. They did know about the progenitor of the strange side. The reason why high heavens lost the battle back then was because 3 progenitors of the strange side had appeared at the same time. However, they did not expect that there were 6 progenitors of the strange side. Moreover, they did not expect that Huang had been causing trouble on the strange side of the plateau all these years. That was why high heavens had been able to hold on for so many years. Another boring persuasion. You bunch of things that are neither human nor ghost. What right do you have to recruit me? Zhou Tong sneered. Today, I will exterminate all of you. Even if our race is killed, we can still be resurrected. You won't have the chance to exterminate us. Huang sneered. However, since you are so stubborn, you will fall here. Don't forget where you are now. If we pay a price, exterminating you will be a piece of cake. At most, we will leave the preparations for high heavens to you. As Huang spoke, the 10 immortal emperors on his side changed their positions at the same time and surrounded Zhou Tong from 10 directions. Grand ceremony begin. As the 10 immortal emperors spoke, the 10 of them seemed to have joined together. At the same time, an extremely strange figure appeared in the void. The strange substance on the 10 of them condensed and finally formed a strange devil shadow. This devil shadow was high and mighty like a supreme god, overlooking the world and enjoying the worship of all living beings. This devil shadow is the one that the strange and ominous people are worshipping? It is very likely to be an existence that surpasses the immortal emperor realm? Zhou Tong also felt his body tremble. A terrifying pressure had already reached his heart. This was the pressure brought by the devil shadow. Although it did not seem to have any self-consciousness, it was only a shadow, but it was enough to make immortal emperors tremble. Buzz. Zhou Tong immediately poured his divine power into his reincarnation mirror. With a flash of brilliance on the surface of the mirror, the supreme pressure was quickly dispelled. However, at this moment, the 10 immortal emperors of the strange race had already begun the sacrifice. Each of them cut off one of their arms and used their own blood as a guide to sacrifice Zhou Tong to this supreme devil shadow. It seems that you guys still don't know how your first companion died. Grand ceremony. You guys are courting death. Facing the grand ceremony of the strange race, Zhou Tong could not help but laugh. Chapter 1544. The Great Sacrifice has begun. All things in this world, the universe's great wastelands, past and present, there will always be something you care about. We are willing to offer everything to you. An unhurried and ancient voice sounded from the heavens, shocking Luo Tianxian and the others in the distance. The voice was ancient, carrying a type of special rhythm, but it made Luo Tianxian and Meng Hai, these people who had already experienced this before, feel their scalps go numb, inwardly nervous. The great sacrifice has begun? Luo Tianxian was a bit horrified, but at the same time, she was a bit confused. They were all still here, even those strange immortal emperors stopped by Zhou Tong. Just what were they going to offer as sacrifice? If I am not mistaken, their sacrifice is Dao Friend Zhou. Meng Hai muttered to himself for a bit and then suddenly said, "They can't do anything to Dao Friend Zhou," so they led him to the sacrificial ground, to that altar. Then, they prepared an endless great sacrifice, offering Dao Friend Zhou as the sacrifice. Correct, it is definitely like this. Luo Tianxian was incomparably worried. Great sacrifice, this type of thing, was something they had experienced before. As long as they went up that altar, there had never been anyone who could survive, not even immortal emperors. Several great eras ago, there were already several immortal emperors who were sacrificed because of this, to the extent where the immortal emperors who were sacrificed didn't even have a trace of spirit left, to the extent where they couldn't even be revived through the reflection of history. What do we do? Meng Hai looked towards Luo Tianxian. Luo Tianxian shook her head, saying, "He already went up to the sacrificial ground, to the extent where he might even be near the altar. What happens next will depend on his own natural luck. That place is a restricted area." Meanwhile, in the sacrificial ground, 10 great immortal emperors surrounded Zhou Tong, the sounds of sacrifice continuously reverberating through the sacrificial ground, as if a ghost was muttering to itself, but also as if a devout believer was praying, carrying a type of strange aura as it rippled about. Strange and sinister sacrificial sounds resounded through the sacrificial ground. The enormous strange demonic figure in the void slowly lowered its head following the sacrificial sounds, a pair of blurry eyes staring at Zhou Tong. This feeling, why does this demonic figure feel a bit familiar? Yi Fan? Sure how? Only now did Zhou Tong feel that this demonic figure seemed to have a bit of familiarity. Even though his appearance was blurry, from some details, he could tell that his appearance was similar to Yi Fan and Sure Hao's. If it were anyone else, they would definitely not know what this thing looked like. Even if it was strange and ominous, they would not be able to see it clearly. Only Zhou Tong, who was the sacrifice, could vaguely sense it. That can't be. Is this devil shadow the owner of the 3 Worlds Copper Hall? All of a sudden, Zhou Tong thought of something. This was the only reason that could explain the problem with the appearance of this thing. The owner of the three-world copper hall. So that's how it is. Is the ominous and strange trying to revive this person? Did the owner of the three-era copper stadium surpass the immortal emperor realm? Zhou Tong was filled with questions. Things like coffins were meant for the dead. They were definitely not meant to be used as weapons. Therefore, the owner of the three-era copper hall must have died, and this coffin was the one that contained his corpse. The same reasoning applied to Yi Fan, Shi Hao, and the others, who were always together with the coffin, which was why they were affected by the aura of the owner of the coffin, affecting their appearances. It is because I have the reincarnation mirror in me that I am not affected by the coffin. I just don't know what I will see if I shine the reincarnation mirror on this demonic figure. Zhou Tong suddenly became interested. What exactly could this demonic figure see in the reincarnation mirror? When this thought appeared, it directly took root in Zhou Tong's mind. It had indeed been a long time since he used the reincarnation mirror's most basic functions. It was because at his current cultivation realm, there was nothing worth using, no one's past life that he needed to specially observe. In reality, after grasping the reincarnation mirror, Zhou Tong also understood that the so-called past life was actually a type of substance in the body, a type of substance that belonged to a predecessor. It was related to the spirit left behind after the predecessor's death. The so-called reincarnation was actually a type of reincarnation of the spirit. Almost immediately afterwards, Zhou Tong used the reincarnation mirror to secretly shine it on the demonic figure. Immediately, a figure appeared in the reincarnation mirror, one that was extremely similar to Yi Fan and Shi Hao. This was, without a doubt, the owner of the three-era copper hall, the source of the trajectory and the unknown sacrifice. It shone? This means that this person still hasn't escaped the range of the reincarnation mirror's reflection. Zhou Tong understood. After becoming an immortal emperor, Zhou Tong's control over the reincarnation mirror seemed to have reached an extreme. Basically, apart from the core part that was related to the 10,000 worlds, everything else was already completely under Zhou Tong's control. It was precisely because of this that Zhou Tong had a vague feeling that by completely exceeding the immortal emperor realm, he might truly be able to surpass the world, roam the heavens. Meanwhile, the reincarnation mirror just happened to correspond to this level of artifact. In other words, if the reincarnation mirror was something refined by someone else, then this thing should be an artifact left behind by an expert surpassing the immortal emperor realm. Since the owner of the three-era copper hall could be so easily revealed by the reincarnation mirror, it meant that he hadn't reached the level of surpassing the world and roaming the heavens. I wonder how this fella died. Zhou Tong was a bit curious and continued to look at the reincarnation mirror. At this moment, the body of the man in the reincarnation mirror seemed to have undergone some changes. What was originally a normal person's body suddenly grew thick red hair, as if he had suddenly turned into a red-furred gorilla. This seen before his eyes, Zhou Tong jumped in fright. However, this wasn't the end of his transformation. His originally clear black and white eyes also changed a step further, as if they had become the eyes of a dead fish. There were no longer any pupils in his eyes, but rather white eyes. Not only this, his 7 apertures were bleeding, all of it was incomparably strange black blood. It was to the extent where later on, his entire body's hair became withered yellow, and gray mist began to pervade his entire body. In almost the blink of an eye, this man who looked similar to Yi Fan and Shi Hao turned into something like a malicious spirit monster. His entire body released the strongest strange aura, terrifying to the extreme. No way, this is the source of the strange? Zhou Tong stared blankly. He actually found the source of the strange matter through the reincarnation mirror? Moreover, the source was actually the owner of the three-era copper hall? The black blood, red hair, gray mist, white fiend, and other things, Zhou Tong already couldn't be more familiar with them. There were quite a few immortal emperors at his side who were offering sacrifices. However, not a single immortal emperor could be like this person, condensing all of the strange and ominous characteristics on his body. Moreover, it was so harmonious. Without a doubt, this person was the source of the strange and ominous. Chapter 1545. I think I understand now. The three-world copper pavilion should be this person's coffin. This person's cultivation encountered a huge problem, his body producing strange changes. This is precisely the origin of the strange and ominous. Zhou Tong understood. He stared at the scene displayed on the reincarnation mirror, a thought suddenly appearing in his mind. Could it be that the strange and ominous coffin is a replica of the three-world copper pavilion? When this thought appeared, Zhou Tong was almost certain that his guess was correct. Sure Hao previously told him that the source of the strange revival was precisely those coffins. Meanwhile, these coffins might very well be the products of the strange and ominous three-world copper pavilion. The three-world copper pavilion Yifan, Sure Hao, and the others obtained precisely the original coffin, but Sure Hao's group didn't obtain the thing inside the coffin, which was the copper pavilion master's corpse. Meanwhile, this corpse ended up in the strange and ominous hands, which was why this type of situation occurred. The strange race's power originates from the corpse of the three-world copper pavilion master. Are they offering sacrifices to the dead three-world copper pavilion master to obtain his power? Zhou Tong began to have his suspicions. However, regardless of what the situation is, placing your attention on me is the wrong decision. Do you all think I am a sacrifice? The true sacrifice is yourselves. Zhou Tong casually activated the reincarnation mirror, slightly suppressing the three-world copper pavilion master's demonic figure. Then, he immediately activated the holy sacrifice method's living sacrifice. It was because this type of great sacrifice was simply prepared for a living sacrifice. The conditions were just too perfect. The 10 great immortal emperors used their own bodies as a guide, linking up with all of the sacrificial ground's power, wishing to sacrifice Zhou Tong to the three-world copper pavilion master's demonic figure. Meanwhile, the precondition for this was that the 10 great immortal emperors had to use their own power, flesh, and even strange matter as a guide. Meanwhile, this just happened to be the most perfect first step of a living sacrifice. Taking the initiative to offer sacrifice. Hong Long. In that instant, strange and sinister power corroded the entire sacrificial process. The sacrifice that was originally offered to the three-world copper pavilion master's demonic figure was now offered to Zhou Tong. In fact, if it was only Zhou Tong, he couldn't complete this step at all. However, the existence of the reincarnation mirror helped him to complete the most crucial step of the living sacrifice. Using the power of the reincarnation mirror to suppress Emoing, the owner of the three-world copper stadium, Zhou Tong was able to successfully replace Emoing and make the 10 bizarre immortal emperors sacrifice themselves to him. Oh! What's going on? Why is my power constantly flowing out? Almost instantly, Huang, the strongest of the strange immortal emperors, sensed that something was wrong with their ritual. Logically speaking, since they had already sacrificed their flesh and divine power, the great sacrifice should have already begun. So why was their power still being continuously extracted? In particular, this process of extraction caused an image to appear in his mind. It was a scene of him presiding over a grand ceremony, and the sacrifice of that grand ceremony was an immortal emperor. Clearly, his current situation was extremely similar to that immortal emperor. I became a sacrifice? Huang's expression changed drastically. He suddenly realized that the initiative of the grand ritual had been quietly tampered with. But how was this possible? That's not right. What's going on? I'm the sacrifice? Why am I the sacrifice? The sacrifice target is wrong. What's going on? Why am I the sacrifice? There's a traitor. There's a traitor among us. Who is it? At this time, the other strange immortal emperors also sensed the seriousness of the matter. They had all become sacrifices to their supreme god. The 10 immortal emperors panicked because they felt a strange and terrifying power seeping into their bodies, causing them to lose control and sacrifice themselves. Live sacrifice Zhu Shen. Moreover, the 10 immortal emperors were sacrificed together. Ancient heavenly sounds, doomsday hymns, chants of scriptures, and the sounds of sacrifice shook the ages as if they came from the distant ancient times and then rippled into the endless future. However, such sounds of sacrifice terrified the 10 immortal emperors. These sounds and strange phenomena were not their great sacrifice. Their great sacrifice had been tampered with by someone. Almost in an instant, the 10 immortal emperors looked at Zhou Tong at the same time. They saw the endless brilliance in the void condensing towards Zhou Tong, making him look incomparably holy, as if he was the only god in the world. Even the devil figure they were sacrificing to became dim because it could not enjoy the sacrifice. You can actually tamper with our great sacrifice. Ah, I know you was killed by you like this. So he was killed by this move. Damn it, you actually have this move. You've never exposed it before. Was it for this moment? You old fox. At this time, the immortal emperors understood that Zhou Tong had killed one of them in this way. Zhou Tong smiled and said, "Didn't you say that you were willing to sacrifice everything? I think this everything should include your own lives. I'm fulfilling your wishes. For your beliefs, there's no need to thank me." When the 10 immortal emperors heard this, they all felt like vomiting blood. I believe that sacrificing your lives for your beliefs should make you all quite happy, right? Zhou Tong added in a leisurely manner. These 10 immortal emperors were already meat on the chopping board, ready to be slaughtered at will. That was why Zhou Tong wasn't that nervous. As for breaking through holy sacrifice, there was indeed a chance of breaking through. If it was an immortal emperor like Shi Hao, there really might be a chance of calming down, and then finding a way to break through his holy sacrifice. However, Zhou Tong already understood their background. These strange races immortal emperors all had extremely low strength. It could be seen that they almost all relied on external forces to become immortal emperors, not themselves. These immortal emperors, regardless of whether it was strength or talent, were seriously lacking. In other words, they were all mentally retarded immortal emperors. Holy sacrifices time was extremely fast. For a group of mentally retarded to break through holy sacrifice in such a short amount of time, it really was too difficult. Bell, come. Zhou Tong casually waved his hand. The Overlord Bell instantly shrunk, landing in Zhou Tong's hands. This time, not only did Zhou Tong himself enjoy the sacrifice, he also needed to further refine his own Tao corroboration artifact. The Overlord Bell was indeed already an immortal emperor artifact a long time ago, but after Zhou Tong's main body officially became an immortal emperor, he still hadn't truly refined this artifact. Now, he could take advantage of the 10 immortal emperors' sacrifice to properly refine it. 10 colored radiance condensed in Zhou Tong's palm, pouring into the Overlord Bell. Dang! The Overlord Bell shook endlessly in Zhou Tong's palm, the bell waves melodious and resounding, engulfing the entire sacrificial ground. The bell sounds were melodious, but in the eyes of the strange and ominous 10 immortal emperors, this was their own death knell. The 10 immortal emperors sacrificed themselves at the same time, endless power and brilliance gathering towards Zhou Tong. Everything seemed to have frozen into a magnificent picture scroll, leaving one's heart shaken. Chapter 1546. The bell reverberated like the ocean, shaking the heavens and time itself. The 10 emperors sacrificed themselves. Their divine light shone like water. Everything was concentrated on Zhou Tong's body, causing his entire person to practically become transparent. The bell was also getting stronger and stronger. At the same time, 10 mysterious lights could be seen faintly inside Zhou Tong's body. These were the 10 true fates that he had fused into his body, which was also his 6th secret realm. Vaguely, these 10 true fates began to move towards the center as if they were about to fuse into one. Zhou Tong's 6th secret realm was based on the chaotic arts, heavenly grotto nurturing divine embryo, as the foundation. He then used the divine sovereign scripture to cultivate hidden fate before finally fusing it with the divine embryo to form the true fate. These 10 true fates represented Zhou Tong's initial 10 avatars, the ultimate derivation of Zhou Tong's Tao path. They contained the profundities of beginning and end. These 10 true fates connected Zhou Tong's grand Tao, allowing him to connect the very beginning of his Tao to the very end. However, after reaching this level, there was an even further change, and that was the difference between the 10 true wills and the 10 true wills. Fusion. Back then, when Zhou Tong cultivated the immortal energy of the immortal ancient method, he had fused with his divine form. He had fused with his own divine form, cultivating a single divine form. But now, if he wanted to take another step forward in his Tao path, he would need to fuse the 10 true fates that formed the 6th secret realm into a single true fate. In other words, he would need to reunite the chaotic 6th secret realm into a single entity. Not long ago, when the 10 true fates formed the 6th secret realm and Zhou Tong reached the immortal emperor realm, he felt that his 10 true fates had the possibility of taking another step forward. However, due to time constraints, he didn't have the time to analyze and comprehend them. He had to go to the battlefield to fight against the ominous and mysterious forces. But now, in this strange and ominous process of the sacrifice of the 10 great immortal emperors, Zhou Tong was finally able to divert some of his attention to ponder this possibility. The 10 great immortal emperors sacrificed themselves, and all of their power fused into one in my body. Now I'm also the perfect return of the 10 great true fates, and I'm considering the matter of the 10 great true fate. Is this the will of the heavens? Zhou Tong couldn't help but have a feeling of destiny in his heart. Ever since he started cultivating, he had always been inseparable from the number 10. It didn't matter if it was the first 10 heavenly grotto heavens, the 10 godly forms, or the 10 true fates. Even now, his opponents were the 10 immortal emperors. Even now, when he was thinking about the fusion of the 10 true fates, the power of the 10 immortal emperors gathered towards him. Such an environment was simply perfect. 10 true fates fusing into one. This is even more difficult than fusing the 10 great godly avatars back then, Zhou Tong thought to himself. In the past, each of the 10 great godly forms was cultivated by himself. Each of them was the result of his cultivation and the innate talent of the overlord body. The source was the same, so it was not difficult to fuse them together. But now, although the 10 great true fates were cultivated by himself, the growth process of each true fate was completely different. Even the cultivation system was different. Although the 10 great true fates became a part of the 6th secret realm at the same time, allowing the 10 great true fates to have a foundation of fusion, the remaining part was still extremely difficult. Our progenitor is about to come into being. There will be no place for you in the myriad realms. Our clan's brilliance will last forever. You'll definitely die a horrible death for mastering such a secret art. Progenitor will definitely save us. The 10 great immortal emperors were unwilling to accept this and shouted themselves hoarse. In the past, they had the ability to revive infinitely, so they were not afraid of death at all. But now they also realized that this strange sacred sacrifice was completely forcing them to commit suicide. If they continued to commit suicide, they would definitely not survive. Even Gao Yuan would not be able to save them. Thus, they were afraid and no longer had the arrogant attitude from before. They no longer had the calm feeling from before. Everyone panicked and understood that there was no hope for them. They were about to face eternal silence. Zhou Tong was too lazy to pay attention to the 10 great immortal emperors who were sacrificing themselves. He focused all his attention on himself and his 6th secret realm. Boom! Zhou Tong poured all the power of the 10 great immortal emperors into the 10 great true fates, turning them into flames. He was simulating the scene of the fusion of the 10 great true fates in the past, hoping to find a way to deal with this situation from the past. Once this method was used, the 10 great true fates quickly got closer. The 10 great true fates seemed to be forced by the external pressure, and began to move towards the center at the same time. However, the further they moved forward, the greater the pressure and repulsion. Because of this, Zhou Tong realized that this kind of forceful fusion was not the right way. It was very likely that something would happen during the fusion process or even some kind of mutation. Especially when thinking about the mutation, Zhou Tong's heart turned cold. He inexplicably thought of the 3-world Coffin Lord. If he forcefully fused them, would he end up like the Lord of the 3-world Coffin Lord? The path of cultivation is filled with danger. One wrong step will lead to eternal damnation. Zhou Tong recalled the flames formed by the 10 great immortal emperors' sacrifice and continued to think and experiment with other fusion methods. With the 10 great immortal emperors' sacrifice, Zhou Tong could now freely experiment with his own fusion path. Within a short period of time, he had experimented with more than a dozen fusion methods. There were some methods that were about to succeed but got stuck at the last step. There were some methods that were wrong at the first step and had no possibility of being tested later. There were also some methods that caused a backlash and Zhou Tong abandoned them at the first moment. As he continued to study and experiment, Zhou Tong understood that if the 10 great true fates were to really fuse together, it would be the same as fusing 10 different cultivation systems together. The difficulty of this step surpassed everything else and was unparalleled. To Zhou Tong, fusing the 10 great true fates into the 6th secret realm was just using the heaven-shrouding arts, one Dao to rule 10,000 Daos, using the heaven-shrouding art as the main method to control the other cultivation systems. However, the fusion of the 10 great true fates was a fusion of cultivation path. This was a completely different level of difficulty. I'm only one step away from the fusion of the 10 great true fates, which is the influence of the 10 cultivation systems. However, if I want to bypass the cultivation systems and forcefully fuse them together, there's only one way, and that is to abandon everything and sacrifice all the grand Daos and paths. Once I do this, I'll be half a step away from surpassing the immortal Emperor realm, Dao sacrifice. Zhou Tong thought to himself. He could vaguely sense that only by reaching the Dao sacrifice realm could he truly fuse the 10 great true fate. Dao sacrifice, this is the only way. But before that, I'll have to get rid of these 10 great immortal emperors. Zhou Tong looked at the 10 great immortal emperors and increased the power of sacred sacrifice. Suddenly, a sea of divine energy entered Zhou Tong's body. Half a day later, the 10 great immortal emperors were completely annihilated with an unwilling roar. Chapter 1547. Meanwhile, on the plateau. Wu, what is going on? A primogenitor who was currently fighting against Heavenly Emperor Huang was greatly shaken, revealing a look of disbelief. Something's wrong, something unexpected happened. Dead, they're all dead. Another primogenitor also revealed a look of shock. He could also sense that the people their race sent out for the great sacrifice were all dead, to the extent where they couldn't even revive. Who is it? How could there be someone like this in the heavens and heavens? The third primogenitor was also incomparably shocked to the point of alarm. It was to the extent where even his movements slowed down. The strange race's 6 great primogenitors all revealed looks of shock, a hint of a bad feeling appearing in their hearts. Heaven-shaking changes happened in the outside world, leaving them momentarily unable to react in time. Meanwhile, on the other side, Hao also took this opportunity to catch his breath. His originally dim figure slowly recovered a bit. Heaven and earth's spiritual essence and endless natural laws began to brew in his body again. The power he exhausted in the previous great battle, as well as the results he obtained, was now partially offset. However, Hao was still a bit puzzled. What is going on? What exactly is going on? Did something happen in the outside world? Why did the strange race's 6 great primogenitors undergo this type of change? Even though Hao was shocked, he didn't have the time or energy to investigate the outside world. He had to do everything he could to recover and face the primogenitors. The 6 great primogenitors' existences left him with no time to spare for other things, to the extent where he couldn't even split his attention to investigate the outside world. This won't do, things have exceeded our expectations. We have to wake up the others. Now that things have reached this stage, there is already no turning back. Today, our 10 great primogenitors will come out together and purge the heavens with blood. The strange race's primogenitors couldn't help but give each other a look, inwardly shaken. Meanwhile, on the other side, heavens, Zhou Tong quietly stood above the sacrificial ground, overlooking the entire sacrificial ground. The 10 great sacrificial immortal emperors had already completely disappeared, turning into scattered ashes, the type where their bodies and souls were completely wiped out. As for the essence of the 10 immortal emperors' sacrifices, 1/3 of it was used by Zhou Tong to experiment on the fusion of the 10 true fates. The remaining 1/3 was used to refine the tyrant bell. The final 1/3 was fused into the origin of the 10 paradise divine rings to strengthen Zhou Tong's trump cards. I wonder how many civilizations and living beings have been sacrificed to this sacrificial ground. It seems to have unparalleled divine power, and some extraordinary power. Zhou Tong glanced at the sacrificial ground. Only at this moment did he have the time and opportunity to examine this sacrificial ground carefully. The more Zhou Tong looked at it, the more shocked he was. This sacrificial ground contained an extremely pure essence of darkness. It was much denser than the essence of those strange immortal emperors. There is a type of power-gathering feeling, a strange and ominous great sacrifice. It should be a sacrifice to the 3-world Coffin Lord, and then obtain power exceeding immortal emperor level. But aren't they afraid that their actions will lead to the revival of the 3-world Coffin Lord? Zhou Tong was confused. Strange and ominous. What was the purpose of their great sacrifice? In terms of power, they were already invincible in the heavens, and even in the high heavens. Moreover, they had the trump card of revival. Could it be that they want to reach the realm above Immortal Emperor? But do they really have any hope of advancing by relying on external forces? I'm afraid that the 3-world Coffin Lord has already failed to break through. Zhou Tong was speechless about the strange and ominous things. The brain circuits of these things were simply abnormal. However, it made sense when he thought about it. It was simply an insult to ghosts to say that they had a brain circuit. Forget it, I'm too lazy to care about these things. Let's deal with this sacrificial ground first. Zhou Tong's eyes turned and immediately shifted his attention to this sacrificial ground. This was a vast and boundless place with an altar and a sacrificial sea. The whole world was so vast that even the peak immortal realms combined could not compare to it. In particular, this place contained an extremely dense and strange power and matter. I'll leave this place to my 10 heavens divine ring to deal with. Zhou Tong did not think too much and immediately unleashed his full strength to activate his 10 heavens divine ring. Boom! In an instant, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled as a terrifying power erupted. This power was completely targeted at Zhou Tong's 10 heavens divine ring. Oh no! Zhou Tong subconsciously put away his 10 heavens divine ring. His expression was solemn as he thought, yes, my 10 heavens divine ring is now equivalent to another world. If I activate it in this world, it will be no different from a war between two worlds. Naturally, it will cause a backlash. I see. I was wondering why the range of my world domain was so small. Turns out that the entire world is targeting me. Zhou Tong understood in his heart. Then, he suddenly stomped his foot. Boom! An extremely powerful aura spread out and engulfed the entire sacrificial ground. The moment Zhou Tong's foot landed, the entire sacrificial ground collapsed. Whether it was the ground, the altar, or the sacrificial sea, everything was torn apart at this moment. The terror of an immortal emperor was fully displayed at this moment. Even the sacrificial ground, which contained the most origin power of darkness, could not withstand Zhou Tong's attack. The originally dense aura was also torn apart at this moment. Then, Zhou Tong grabbed at the air with his right hand. His 5 fingers enveloped a large area of the sacrificial ground's fragment. With just a grab, it was as if the entire void of the world had been grabbed. The core of the strange and ominous sacrificial ground was directly grabbed by Zhou Tong. Boom! Zhou Tong casually sent these things into his 10 heavens divine ring. The power of the divine ring erupted, crushing and purifying these continents, seas, and the core of the strange matter. Then, they were integrated into the world's origin power. In an instant, the entire sacrificial ground was completely digested by Zhou Tong. Then, Zhou Tong took a step forward and reappeared in the sky above the tyrant body's bloodline. Taoist Zhou, you actually won and even destroyed the strange and ominous sacrificial ground? Luo Tianxian exclaimed. Her face was full of joy and surprise. When Zhou Tong was dealing with the sacrificial ground, they saw it clearly. After all, such a huge sacrificial ground was suspended in the sky above high heavens. Taoist Zhou, I didn't expect that the strange and ominous that caused high heavens to decline to this extent would be quelled by you just like that. Could it be that you have already surpassed the end of the path level? Meng Hai was also in disbelief as he asked. Zhou Tong shook his head and said, I haven't broken through yet. It's just that they used the wrong method to deal with me. That's why I killed them so easily. They miscalculated this time, and this time they won't be resurrected. He continued, the strange and ominous aren't completely destroyed. They still have a base camp. During this attack, their progenitor was blocked by desolation. I'm just arranging some things now. I'll go to the strange and ominous base camp later. Luo Tianxian and Meng Hai nodded. Chapter 1548. Zhou Tong gave Luo Tianxian and Meng Hai a rough explanation of his discoveries. Then, he found Yen Ruyu, Green Emperor, as well as a few of his own outstanding descendants. He also gave them a rough explanation of some things, moreover making arrangements for the future. After doing all of this, Zhou Tong quickly left Heavens. He was heading towards the headquarters of the strange and ominous. He wanted to take a look around that plateau. For him, who had reached immortality and eternity, there was nothing to be afraid of in the hometown of the weird and the ominous. Even if he couldn't win, he could definitely guarantee that he wouldn't die. It was to the extent where he could continuously revive on the spot, even exhausting the strange and ominous to death. Correct, exhausting them to death. Originally, the strange and ominous relied on this method to kill who knew how many experts, but now it was Zhou Tong's turn to use this method to deal with them. After the 10 heavenly passage divine ring completely broke down and purified the sacrificial ground, even the 3 world coffins owner's demonic shadow was refined. This made Zhou Tong's 10 heavenly passage divine ring increase in power by quite a bit. One has to understand that this was the ancestor of the strange and ominous. In terms of revival ability, apart from Zhou Tong's own unbounded undying and void undying, just the benefits of breaking down the demonic shadow left behind by the 3 world coffins owner already made his revival ability not inferior to the strange and ominous immortal emperors. Honglong. On the dusky plateau, the great battle continued. The strange and ominous 6 great ancestors surrounded and attacked Sure Hao alone, blasting him until his entire body collapsed. One of his arms had been completely shattered. At the same time, the wound was stained with an extremely dense gray substance, which was emitting wisps of gray gas. A large piece of flesh had been clawed off from his right leg, and the blood on the wound still carried wisps of dark substance. At the same time, his shoulder and chest had been pierced through. These injuries were extremely shocking. If it was anyone else, they might have already fallen here. However, Sure Hao was still incomparably valiant, forcefully fighting against the 6 great ancestors. However, the 6 primogenitors were getting more and more anxious. They could feel that something big had happened outside. If they continued to be delayed here, it would be troublesome. Great changes have occurred in the outside world. We cannot allow Huang to continue wreaking havoc here. All of you, why haven't you awakened yet? At this time, a primogenitor suddenly turned around and roared at Gao Yuan. His voice was like thunder and lightning, breaking the silence of the plateau. Even some of the Daozu who lived near the plateau were shocked. Could it be that 6 primogenitors wasn't the final number? Could it be that there were still a few primogenitors in hibernation? This wasn't all. The corners of Sure Hao's eyes were also twitching. Could there be another primogenitor in slumber? If that was the case, then did he not greatly underestimate the strength and foundation of the anomalies? This was a huge flaw in his plan. His previous plan was based on the premise that there were 5 to 6 primogenitors. If there were more primogenitors, his plan wouldn't be safe. It might even be full of flaws. Hong Long. However, right when the anomaly's primogenitor shouted, a terrifying power suddenly attacked, piercing through the void. 10 colored radiance blossomed like a sun. The sky full of Tao patterns and strange matter were all scattered. In the end, everything exploded, landing on the primogenitor's body. Almost in an instant, the primogenitor's body was blasted apart. His flesh and blood exploded, his soul and flesh shattered. Strange matter filled the sky. Dang! At the same time, the sound of a bell rang out. The vast bell waves were like the undulating waves of a vast ocean. The entire strange plateau seemed to be intimidated by this terrifying bell wave. Endless laws were disillusioned in this vast ocean of bell wave. The flesh and soul that were originally blasted apart were now being baptized by the bell wave. Not only that, 2 arms quickly appeared in the void. These 2 arms seemed to be hugging a furnace, collecting all of the powder crushed by the bell wave and burning it with unmatched divine flames. Hong Long. Right at this time, a world-shaking explosion sounded. This anomaly's primogenitor used all of his strength to forcefully self-destruct, breaking free from the terrifying bell wave. At the same time, the terrifying power of an immortal emperor's self-destruction turned into a shockwave, sweeping through everything in the surroundings. This sudden change shocked the other 5 primogenitors not far away, as well as Sure Hao on the side. Soon after, Zhou Tong walked out from the void with a look of regret. What a pity! A primogenitor is a primogenitor after all. His reactions are too fast, even able to react to my surprise attack so quickly. Zhou Tong indeed felt a bit of pity. He originally thought that this sneak attack could directly eliminate a primogenitor, but in the end, he was still a bit off, the other party self-destructing and running away. If I cultivated to the Tao sacrifice realm, this primogenitor might have been gone immediately. Zhou Tong felt a bit helpless. His cultivation realm was still a bit lower than these primogenitors. Even though these primogenitors mostly relied on external forces to reach the Tao sacrifice realm, this realm was still there. You came? How could you be so fast? When Sure Hao saw Zhou Tong walk out from the void, he was also stunned. This type of growth speed was simply terrifying. What was even more terrifying was how did he come out just now? How exactly did he launch a sneak attack on that primogenitor? Sure Hao felt like he couldn't see through Zhou Tong anymore. That move was simply the #1 sneak attack method throughout the ages. It was to the extent where when he saw that primogenitor's end, even Sure Hao himself was a bit alarmed. He knew that if Zhou Tong launched a sneak attack like this, striking him, his own foundation might collapse. This Tao of yours, it is simply ridiculous. What happened to being a war immortal? Sure Hao ridiculed. This type of sneak attack even has the nerve to call himself a war immortal? You are even more suited to this type of hiding plan than me. Don't mind those details, I'm here to help you. Zhou Tong had a bell above his head. He laughed, and then his eyes stared at the 5 primogenitors in front of him. Right at this time, an ice-cold voice sounded from the plateau. It was precisely that strange primogenitor who was killed by Zhou Tong's sneak attack before. Good methods, actually able to silently appear at my side, to the extent where I only discovered you when your attack was about to reach me. Also, that attack contained an aura that made even me tremble with fear. If not for my fast reactions, I might have really been killed by you just now. This primogenitor's voice was ice-cold and ruthless, making one's hair stand on end. Moreover, even those Daozu who lived at the edge of the plateau could feel their primogenitor's anger and fear. He really was killed. When these words came from the primogenitor's mouth, it clearly carried a different meaning. This meant that this person had the ability to completely wipe out their primogenitor. He could destroy their revival, make them fall into eternal silence. This matter was no small matter. The other primogenitors couldn't help but feel greatly shaken. Chapter 1549. This primogenitor stared at Zhou Tong, the killing intent and anger in his eyes undisguised. Just now, he really was that close to dying under this person's hands. It was to the extent where even he had a premonition that once he truly died under the other party's hands, even his own resurrection would be useless. Previously, after being ambushed, this primogenitor didn't feel much at first, but after being blasted apart, a wave of terrifying power silently extended over, immediately making this primogenitor tremble from the bottom of his heart, as if he was facing a disaster. That was why he decisively self-detonated. It was precisely because of this that this person was almost certain that Zhou Tong had some type of ability that could eliminate them. Right now, not only was this strange primogenitor shocked, even Sure Hao looked at Zhou Tong with a bit of shock. He almost killed a primogenitor just now? Sure Hao asked himself. If he went all out, he indeed had a chance of killing a primogenitor to the point where they couldn't revive. However, that was based on continuous killing. Even if it was a sneak attack, there was no way he could instantly kill a primogenitor to the point where they couldn't revive. You found a way to deal with these damn things? Sure Hao transmitted sound, a bit excited. Zhou Tong transmitted sound. It's not that simple. This method is something only I can use, related to my Tao path. However, as long as they die by my side, I have confidence in preventing them from reviving. The range is roughly 100 zhang with me at the center. Just now, if not for this primogenitor self-detonating, the shock wave forcing me back, this primogenitor really would be hopeless. I can prevent him from reviving. His world domain's range wasn't enough. If it spread out even further, it would trigger the resistance and confrontation of the entire world. The gains wouldn't make up for the losses. The range of 100 zhang was the range his world domain could grasp. Moreover, Zhou Tong stared at these primogenitors, inwardly thinking, this primogenitor can sense my world domain. His Tao sacrifice realm is indeed a bit unordinary. This cultivation realm vaguely exceeds Immortal Emperor by half a step, but if it goes a step further, it might truly be able to roam the heavens. They can vaguely sense my world domain. This is enough to prove that they already possess a bit of the ability and characteristics to roam the heavens. Through that attack just now, Zhou Tong roughly understood the terror of the Tao sacrifice realm. Doesn't that mean it's only useful if you kill them yourself? Furthermore, he couldn't use the Dharma form, so he had to use his real body to get close to kill it? However, on the other side, Sure Hao was a bit speechless. 1,000 feet might seem very wide, but this was a battle between immortal emperors. For an immortal emperor, 300 meters was an extremely small range. This was especially true when an immortal emperor unleashed his Dharma idol, which was billions of feet tall and towering between heaven and earth. A mere 100 feet was like a layer of clothing, completely useless. Zhou Tong did not answer, which could be considered as a tacit agreement. The world domain was still very useful when it was the size of a normal human body. However, once it was used in a battle similar to the Dharma form, it was almost useless. Boom! However, at this moment, a blurry figure appeared beside the revived progenitor. It was the seventh progenitor. After endless years, no one had ever seen the seventh progenitor. Even the strange races didn't know about this existence, to the extent where they had never even heard of him before, yet he appeared at this time. Even though the progenitor had spoken before, they never thought that they would truly see the seventh progenitor one day. After countless great eras, I have revived again. My descendant has been killed. Who did it? This progenitor spoke. Then, a pair of terrifying eyes stared at Zhou Tong and Sure Hao. Killed again? At this time, the other progenitors suddenly recalled something. Since this one already slaughtered his way to their side, then what kind of ending did those people they sent out before have? Was there even a need to ask? Could it be that the great change they sensed before was precisely this? The 10 great immortal emperors their clans sent out were all killed? Everyone looked towards Zhou Tong, their eyes even more so carrying endless shock and killing intent. Where are they? A progenitor glared angrily at Zhou Tong. Zhou Tong chuckled and said, "Don't look at me like that. You all already know that I have the ability to kill you all, so why ask so much? Those fellas have already offered themselves up. For the one you all are offering sacrifices, they took the initiative to offer themselves up. I believe they died laughing." What? When these words were spoken, all of the strange progenitors were even more furious. Not only did this person find a way to wipe them out, he even broke through their great sacrifice? One had to understand that their unlimited revival power actually originated from the power left behind by that unimaginable existence during the Great Sacrifice. The Great Sacrifice being broken meant that their revival power couldn't be replenished. They also didn't have the ability to exhaust others to death. In the end, they might even be exhausted to death by others. Meanwhile, their unlimited revival power was broken through, so it was even more likely that their remaining power would be useless. What kind of thing was this fella exactly? Why did it feel like he was the bane of their clan? The other party simply destroyed their clan's trump cards and backing from the very foundation. When facing this fella, the only thing their clan could still hold on and not be broken through was this plateau. Honglong. Right at this time, on the ancestral plateau that was split open, another 3 figures appeared. In the end, the remaining 3 progenitors also appeared. Together with the previous progenitors, there were a total of 10. When the final 3 appeared, everyone was immediately shocked again. There were actually 10 strange progenitors. 10 great progenitors! Sure Hao was also shocked. This number far exceeded what he expected. It was to the extent where even the strange and ominous themselves didn't know that they had 10 great progenitors. There's a mistake in the plan. If the 10 great progenitors all come out, without anyone holding them back, my plan will be completely useless. Sure Hao was incomparably shocked. His plan definitely couldn't escape the 10 great progenitors' joint deductions. 10 great progenitors. 10 great immortal emperors. I seem to have understood something. However, the instant he saw the 10 great progenitors, countless thoughts appeared in Zhou Tong's mind. Without a doubt, these 10 great progenitors all came into close contact with the strange matter left behind by the three-world Coffin Lord, which was why they became like this. Meanwhile, the previous 10 great immortal emperors should have only come into contact with a deteriorated version of the strange matter, which was why they could only become immortal emperors. The 10 great progenitors correspond to the 10 great immortal emperors, which is to say that the 10 great immortal emperors might very well be their inheritors. The key to these progenitors is actually the strange matter. Even if they die, the strange matter can still be passed down. Those immortal emperors are inheritors. The progenitors can also be passed down, which is to say that all inheritors have been wiped out. This is the best time to eliminate the strange matter. Chapter 1550. The best time to eliminate the strange. As soon as this thought appeared, it immediately took root in Zhou Tong's mind. However, soon after, Zhou Tong looked at Shi Hao on the side, inwardly sighing. Right now, Shi Hao was already about to reach his limit, and there were a few more ancestors on the other side. He didn't have the ability to eliminate the strange by himself. However, it doesn't matter. I am undying and imperishable. As long as I persevere, there will be a chance for me to find the secret to merging the 10 great true fates into one. There will be a chance for me to advance to the Tao sacrifice realm. Even though he was facing powerful enemies, Zhou Tong didn't feel the slightest bit of despair, instead carrying endless hope. It was because he knew that the strange and inauspicious didn't have a chance to kill him at all. Meanwhile, if this continued, the ones who would truly suffer would be them. Hong Long. Heaven and earth shook intensely. The 10 great ancestors appeared at the same time, moving side by side, standing across from Zhou Tong and Shi Hao. An anomaly has truly appeared in this generation. One of the ancestors spoke, his voice carrying a trace of sorrow and shock. He truly didn't expect someone to silently break through their great sacrifice, unravel their secret of resurrection. This was equivalent to overturning the foundation of their clan's existence. We cannot deduce anything. Your concealment methods are truly terrifying. Us 10 great ancestors appeared together, yet we still couldn't deduce any of your origins or karma. From the past, we could see your loved ones and friends, but we couldn't see your existence. It is as if you aren't someone of this space-time, a traveler who transcends time and space. Another primogenitor spoke, and it was with such a shocking voice. Even the 10 great ancestors couldn't deduce any information about Zhou Tong? This was just too terrifying. What kind of Tao was this exactly? What kind of method was this? Shi Hao was speechless. He looked at Zhou Tong with a hint of speechlessness. If you were willing to cooperate with the plan, the 10 great ancestors wouldn't be scared either. Zhou Tong didn't feel anything, only revealing a smile. If you can still detect the origin of my karma after the completion of the 10 Heavens Divine Ring, that would be a miracle. Strictly speaking, after the 10 Paradise Divine Ring was completed, Zhou Tong's karma could be completely transferred into the 10 Paradise Divine Ring, causing his existence in the outside world to completely disappear. If Zhou Tong wanted to, he could even erase all traces and memories of the outside world. However, even if they were not removed, no one would be able to use these traces to find Zhou Tong, let alone deduce all the information about him. This was also the reason why Zhou Tong's sneak attack was so powerful. If you continue to hide like this and wait for countless years, perhaps there will be an ultimate leap in the future when you reach our level. At that time, you might be able to deal a devastating blow to our race, another progenitor said. He also had great boldness and did not hesitate to praise Zhou Tong. It was because Zhou Tong's existence, for their race, was indeed an unimaginable disaster. This type of person, once he was outside, from time to time, he would launch sneak attacks on 1 or 2 immortal emperors, or even 1 or 2 progenitors. Their race might not recover as quickly as he killed them. However, it is a pity that you still couldn't hold back in the end. For the sake of those ants in the outside world, you didn't hesitate to expose yourself to us, not hesitating to kill our clan's 10 great path experts, allowing us to discover a variable like you. The last progenitor said, even carrying a trace of complacency. However, apart from being complacent, there was still a trace of lingering fear. Those without any attachments were the most terrifying. However, when one had fetters, it was the same as having a weakness. With a weakness, it was the same as finding a way to deal with him. Think about it carefully. Since I can come here without a sound, can I leave without a sound? Zhou Tong still did not feel nervous. There was a trace of a smile on his face. You! As soon as these words were spoken, the expressions of the 10 primogenitors changed abruptly, and a trace of bewilderment appeared in their eyes. This was indeed what they were worried about. If the other party could come without a sound, it meant that he might be able to leave without a sound as well. Ha! A bunch of trash like you dare to point fingers at me? You're not worthy. Zhou Tong couldn't help but laugh at the progenitor's expressions. Then, rumble! His entire body glowed, and 10 colored halos enveloped him. Then, he threw out a punch. The brilliant fist print was like the sun in the sky, surging through the ages. The rumbling sound was deafening, and there was an incomparably grand Dao pattern blooming from the fist print, cutting off the void and time. The progenitors couldn't help but be shaken by such a terrifying attack. They waited with rapt attention. This person clearly hadn't sacrificed himself yet, but in terms of battle prowess, he wasn't much weaker than their progenitors. Rumble! An earth-shattering explosion rang out as the strange progenitor met Zhou Tong's attack head-on. Endless Dao runes bloomed in the air like lotuses, filling heaven and earth. Blinding divine light illuminated the gloomy plateau. Clang! At the same time, dazzling light erupted and deafening bell waves rang out. Zhou Tong's bell slammed forward, and in the blink of an eye, he was once again at the progenitor's side, clashing head-on with him once more. At this moment, time seemed to boil like the sea. The sea turned into mulberry fields, the passage of time, the passage of time, and the passage of time. Amidst the endless rumbling, the entire plateau seemed to resonate with the 2 progenitors. Even the heavens were born and destroyed, and space-time was wailing in grief. You are indeed very strong. You haven't reached this level, but you're not inferior to us. If we let you take another step forward, the world will turn upside down. The other 2 progenitors flew over and attacked Zhou Tong together. Zhou Tong flew back. If he were to fight 1 against 2, he still had no chance of winning. Rumble! However, soon after, 2 more figures appeared from the side, cutting off Zhou Tong's path of retreat. Then, the 2 progenitors from before, as well as the progenitor who clashed with him before, surrounded him. For the sake of dealing with Zhou Tong, for the sake of not letting him escape, the 5 progenitors surrounded him. Their auras even condensed into one, and a strange substance filled the void and time. Rumble! Within the strange substance that was so dense it seemed to be boiling, even the great river of time seemed to have been pulled out by them, completely cutting off a section. The space-time they were in couldn't be connected to the upper and lower reaches of the great river of time. This was to completely cut off Zhou Tong's hidden aura, allowing him to escape from the great river of time. After discovering Zhou Tong's threat, the strange progenitors already used all of their strength to lock down everything, not allowing him to escape. Rumble! At the same time, on the other side, Sure Hao was also clashing with the remaining 5 progenitors. The battle there was much more intense. Sure Hao didn't have Zhou Tong's concealment methods, so the 5 progenitors didn't need to lock him down. They only needed to use all of their strength to defeat him. Chapter 1551. The Great Battle continued. Facing the siege of the 5 great primogenitors, Zhou Tong was already seriously injured in practically an instant. His left arm was cut off, A streak of sword radiance pierced through his abdomen, and there was a palm imprint that almost shattered his shoulder. Even a part of his chin was cut off. However, on the other side, one of the ancestors wasn't in a good state either. His chest was pierced through by Zhou Tong's fist, and his entire body was covered in crack. There was even the power of time contained within, making his body almost withered up. When facing this type of attack, Zhou Tong's method of fighting was extremely simple. He would capture one of the ancestors and beat him to death. That was why in a short period of time, he was seriously injured, but one of the ancestors was also seriously injured. Hong Long. However, at this time, victory and defeat had already been decided on the other side of the battlefield. Shi Hao's body was directly blasted apart by one of the ancestors. This time, he couldn't revive anymore. He was only a clone to begin with, and he was already like a lamp that ran out of oil. Previously, he borrowed Zhou Tong's sneak attack on one of the ancestors to catch his breath, but now that he was facing the full power attacks of 5 great ancestors, he finally couldn't hold on any longer. He only killed 2 ancestors before dying. Hong Long. The strange plateau shook. The 2 ancestors that were killed by Shi Hao walked out from the strange plateau again. They revived. Worthy of being Huang. Before dying, he even brought 2 of us with him. However, my clan has existed for a long time. Even if he kills us 1,000, 10,000 times, we can still revive. One of the primordial Zhu Xun's expression was calm. Now, as long as we get rid of this person, my clan will be able to rest easy. Another ancestor also spoke. Kill! Following Shi Hao's departure, the other 10 great ancestors all shifted their attention to Zhou Tong. Terrifying killing intent shook the ancient times. The part of the river of time they cut off was dyed pitch black. Fight! Zhou Tong roared crazily. His entire body burned with nirvana divine flame. He brandished his fist towards the sky with all his strength, colliding with a large hand covered in white hair. Terrifying divine light erupted. Poof! But very quickly, the primal ancestor's palms split open and strange blood dripped down. However, Zhou Tong was also pushed back by this attack and he was sent flying. As he flew back, he swung his arm like a heavenly blade at a primogenitor who was attacking him along the way. In an instant, the void shattered. Boundless destructive force collided with a rod in the hands of a primogenitor, forcing the primogenitor back. On the other side, the tyrant bell rumbled, sending out endless ripples as it clashed head-on with another primogenitor who was chasing after him. After a short confrontation, the plateau where the strange creatures were located was shattered. But soon, a strange light flowed on the plateau, and the plateau returned to normal. Next, however, a spear pierced through the air to punch a large hole in Zhou Tong's chest, causing a large amount of blood to spurt out. Zhou Tong was furious. He used all his strength to shatter the opponent's spear. Then, he used a palm to force the strange primogenitor back. Then, he kicked out a storm to force back the attacks of 2 primogenitors. This battle was very dangerous. Even though Zhou Tong did not hesitate to use up all his strength, he could only force the primogenitors back slightly. Once his strength weakened, he would immediately collapse. The current Zhou Tong was indeed very strong. It could even be said that he was absolutely invincible among immortal emperors. He could even clash with Dao's sacrifice experts who were half a level higher than immortal emperors. But there was no other way. This was the headquarters of the strange creatures, and there were 10 primogenitors surrounding him. Even if these primogenitors did not use their full strength, Zhou Tong was already on the verge of collapsing. In fact, it was already very heaven-defying for an immortal emperor to be able to resist the attacks of several Dao sacrifice experts in a short time. Kill! A strange immortal emperor who was forced back roared once more and rushed over, wanting to kill Zhou Tong. Today you will die without a doubt. A golden-furred progenitor roared and slashed down with his saber again, shattering the void. The saber seemed to be condensed into a long river of time, with surging power of time dancing and vast Tao runes spreading out. The scene was terrifying to the extreme. Clang! 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 Zhou Tong struck the bell with all his might. Violent bell waves swept out. Endless ripples swept across the sky like ocean waves, accompanied by terrifying thunderbolts and flames, accompanied by the slashing of time blades and swords, accompanied by endless order. In an instant, the heaven and earth shook violently. Clangs resounded across the plateau. Many primogenitors' weapons were struck by the bell wave. Rumble! But soon, all the primogenitors stepped forward at the same time. A terrifying power shook the world and reversed time. In an instant, all the vibrations of the bell waves calmed down. In an instant, Zhou Tong's body became incomparably heavy. The suppression of the 10 primogenitors was no small matter. Even Zhou Tong himself felt that he was a bug in amber, unable to move. Tao sacrifice. This is the power of Tao sacrifice. Although the situation was dangerous, Zhou Tong's battle intent surged. Not only was he fighting, but he was also exploring the power of Tao sacrifice and spying on the primogenitor's power. He wanted to break through, to surpass himself in battle, to take another step forward and reach the realm of Tao sacrifice. Tao sacrifice, let me use this life of mine to explore it. Zhou Tong roared in his heart and charged towards the primogenitors. Terrifying power swept across the sky, shaking spacetime. The millions of miles of void on the battlefield seemed to extend endlessly into eternity. The void seemed to be filled with the destruction of all things. The supreme power was vast and mighty. Rumble! Finally, Zhou Tong's body exploded amidst the boundless divine light. But soon, Zhou Tong reformed his body amidst the raging flames. His battle intent was still high as he brazenly charged towards the primogenitors. Right now, not only was his battle intent high, there was even a hint of excitement. The destruction just now allowed him to grasp a bit of the profound mysteries of the Tao sacrifice realm. Ha, kill! Zhou Tong's expression was incomparably crazy, his attacks even more so, not retreating. He fought with all of his strength against the primogenitors. You are an outstanding individual. My clan thirsts for talent, but unfortunately, you are too troublesome. We won't give you any chance of survival, a primogenitor said unhurriedly. Even when facing Sure Hao, whose cultivation realm was higher, these primogenitors still didn't give up on persuading him to surrender. However, when facing Zhou Tong, these primogenitors didn't even try to persuade him to surrender. Their killing intent was firm. It was because Zhou Tong's existence, for them, was the most terrifying taboo. He violated the core taboo of their clan. They were truly scared that the most fundamental strange matter couldn't contaminate him, scared that not only could the most fundamental strange matter not transform him, it would instead make him take that final step. When facing this type of opponent, the primogenitors only had one thought, and that was kill. Chapter 1552. Within a certain extremely secretive great world. This was an extremely secretive secret room. The room wasn't large, only having a praying mat and a pool flickering with lightning radiance. Who? Sure Hao suddenly released a breath of air, opening his eyes. Then, after remaining silent for a bit, he placed his own sword into the lightning pool. The incarnation failed again? You still couldn't enter that strange plateau? A white-clothed woman appeared from the lightning pool, looking at Sure Hao, who already opened his eyes. This person was precisely the willow deity who died countless years ago because she tried to save Sure Hao in the strange plateau. Sure Hao had previously taken action to save her, but because she died in the strange plateau, even if she revived, her body would still be contaminated by endless strange matter. That was why Sure Hao placed her in his own law pool to slowly purify her. I can't enter. That place is surrounded by some type of special power. Without them leading the way, I can't enter. According to my observations, even their strange Daozu can only move around the edges. Only immortal emperors and even primogenitors can enter the depths. Sure Hao shook his head. Over the years, he had been confronting the strange progenitor because he wanted to find out the root of the problem with the strange bloodline. He wanted to know how to sneak up to the strange bloodline's highland. He wanted to sneak in and destroy those strange coffins. Instead, your plan, has it really been decided to begin now? Isn't it a bit too fast? That person, can he really replace you, protect that strange plateau? Willow Deity continued to ask. She also knew about Sure Hao's plan, so she naturally knew about Zhou Tong's existence. She also knew that Zhou Tong was about to replace Sure Hao in blocking the spring water. However, this bit of time was just a bit too fast. Since the ancient times, there had never been anyone who could reach this level of strength in such a short amount of time. Not even Sure Hao was as fast as him. Sure Hao said with a sigh, I underestimated him. The current him is only a hair's breadth away from being a primogenitor. If it was a one-on-one battle, a primogenitor might be suppressed by him. However, I also underestimated the strange and unknown strength. The number of primogenitors isn't the 5 or 6 I guessed before, but rather 10. When facing 10 great primogenitors, even if his cultivation advances by leaps and bounds, reaching another level, he still definitely won't be able to hold on. My information was wrong, it was me who harmed him. Sure Hao shook his head, feeling a bit guilty. Willow Deity was also speechless. For a moment the entire secret room was silent. What a pity! His Tao was originally the nemesis of the uncanny and ominous. He seemed to have found a way to counter them. That's why the primogenitors all came out to exterminate him. In the end, Sure Hao released a sigh. We missed him, we missed the best opportunity to wipe out the strange creatures. In the end, our strength still isn't enough. After a sigh, Sure Hao didn't say too much, entering a state of cultivation again. Because his strength wasn't enough, he missed out on a great opportunity that was hard to come by in tens of thousands of great eras. Sure Hao also felt great pain from his own lack of strength. At the same time, on the strange plateau, boom! The 10 great strange primogenitors attacked together again. The terrifying attack was like a boundless flood, engulfing 10,000 regions. Even the great river of time seemed like it was going to evaporate here. Endless Tao patterns appeared densely, all of them releasing an unmatched aura, crushing towards the other side. Zhou Tong also did everything he could to defend himself. What amplification methods! Attacking methods were all displayed. However, before the attacks of the 10 great Tao sacrifice realm experts, he was like a moth flying into a flame. He was immediately struck, his entire body exploding, flesh flying everywhere. Hong Long! Raging flames scattered. Endless divine force gathered. Zhou Tong was reborn in the raging flames again. However, the strange primogenitors naturally wouldn't give him another chance to be reborn. For the strange primogenitors, this battle had already dragged on for too long. If they continued fighting, for them, the gains wouldn't make up for the losses. The strange substance spread out, and the unparalleled power was ferocious like the tide, bombarding Zhou Tong's body once again. Almost in an instant, Zhou Tong's body, which was gradually recovering, once again collapsed. At the same time, a rain of blood poured down from the sky. This was the scene of imperial collapse, an indication of the death of an immortal emperor. However, despite this, the strange primogenitors didn't relax at all. On the contrary, they became quite serious. This was because this person was still alive. Even though it was imperial collapse, there was still a majestic vitality spreading. How can this be? He's still alive after being beaten to this state? A progenitor found it hard to believe. Wait, look, what is that? Suddenly, A progenitor's eyes became serious. 10 figures appeared in the air. They were the true dragon, Qilin Kuan Peng, immortal phoenix, 9 nether python, mole mantis, 9-leaf sword grass, 9 nether python, lightning emperor, and divine striking stone. Very soon, the true dragon's silhouette lit up before quickly dispersing. Immediately afterwards, Zhou Tong's figure reappeared in the air. Full resurrection on the spot. Zhou Tong's 10 true fates were originally developed towards the direction of resurrection. When his fake fates turned into true fates, he knew that each of his true fates represented a chance at resurrection. Each true fate was a living life. Including his original body, he had 11 lives. Even without using infinity and void indestructibility, he would need to be killed 11 times to resurrect. The only difference was whether he wanted to use these lives or not. If he wanted to, his 11 lives could allow him to resurrect 11 times. Only when all 11 times were exhausted would he truly die. But what about after death? With infinity and void indestructibility, as well as the 10 heavenly grotto heaven divine ring, he would be able to resurrect again. Then 11 more lives. This is his Tao? I know those 10 things are his fates. He died once but still has 10 lives. Killing him once isn't enough, we have to kill him 10 more times. Another progenitor said. 10 lives. What the hell, he has more lives than we have. Cold sweat dripped down the foreheads of the progenitors. If he had pretended to be dead, with his strange Tao of concealment, even they wouldn't have been able to detect him if he slowly resurrected. Yet, he had exposed himself at this time. Haha, you're actually willing to expose another trump card for those ants. Another progenitor said. He understood that Zhou Tong was definitely going to fight to the death here to delay the 10 progenitors. Otherwise, when the 10 of them came out, the all heavens and high heavens would have no way to survive. He was going to fight to the death here to delay them, just like desolation in the past. What a pity, if you had concealed yourself, we might have paid a greater price after you broke through. But you're still too stupid. Another progenitor said softly. Chapter 1553. On the strange plateau, Zhou Tong was resurrected on the spot. I see. So this is the true meaning of Tao sacrifice. Zhou Tong faintly thought to himself. Earlier, when he died and sacrificed the life of his true body, he was able to comprehend a trace of the true meaning of Tao sacrifice. The so-called Tao sacrifice was to completely sacrifice one's grand Tao and quintessence, abandon everything, and then undergo a transformation of rebirth. Only when one had the heart to abandon everything could one advance to this realm. Since ancient times, how many people had been able to reach this realm apart from the progenitors of the strange branch? Even during the most glorious era of the high heavens, there might not be 1 or 2 immortal emperors of this realm. Moreover, after they were born, most of them died near the strange plateau at the hands of the progenitors of the strange branch. It could be said that this realm was absolutely the highest realm in the heavens. Since ancient times, only a few people had been able to cultivate it. This realm required a resolute attitude of abandoning one's grand Tao and origin. Only then would one be qualified to reach this realm. However, who was not proud of their grand Tao after reaching the immortal emperor realm? Who was not confident in their grand Tao? Who did not place great importance on their grand Tao? Under such circumstances, how was it possible for them to give up everything they had? It could be said that since ancient times, all the cultivators who were able to reach this realm were immortal emperors who had been forced to the brink of despair. All of them had extremely tenacious vitality, and were able to give up everything and start anew. It was also because of this that Zhou Tong was able to touch upon this realm. In terms of abandonment, what could compare to Zhou Tong's abandonment of his life? If he was willing to give up his life, then what about his grand Tao and origin? Only under such circumstances and under such a state of mind could one quickly comprehend the true meaning of Tao sacrifice and advance to this realm in the shortest time possible. In terms of vitality, what could compare to Zhou Tong's resurrection ability? Infinity was indestructible and the void was indestructible. It was certain that no matter what he gave up, there was a possibility for him to start anew. Only such a configuration could support Zhou Tong's method of fighting with his life, killing with his life, and comprehending the Tao with his life. The truly frightening part of the combat immortal path was not the battle intent, nor was it merely advancing through battle. What was truly terrifying about it was that no matter what kind of opponent it encountered, it would always have an unyielding will and the vitality to be reborn. The path to becoming a war immortal was also one that needed to be supported in order to continue walking. Kill! Compared to Zhou Tong's calmness, the 10 primogenitors felt anger, fear, and even jealousy. This opponent was far more difficult to deal with than they had imagined. Even if they resurrected 11 times in a row, they would still have to pay an unimaginable price. However, this person actually had so many lives so easily. How could this not make them angry, frightened, and jealous? Fight! Zhou Tong roared and tried his best to fight against the progenitors. He was using the true dragon life, so his Tao naturally underwent some wondrous changes. In the past, he used the heaven-shrouding law to control the 10 cultivation systems. But now that he had sacrificed his true body and used the true dragon life, his Tao was the true dragon Tao. He was now equivalent to a peerless immortal emperor who had cultivated the world of longevity's cultivation system to an unparalleled level. Every move he made was accompanied by a peerless Tao that allowed him to traverse the void and time. Boom! But in the end, this life couldn't withstand the power of the 10 progenitors. After 2 hours of fighting, he was once again defeated by the 10 strange progenitors. In fact, after Zhou Tong became a peerless immortal emperor, each of his true fates was already on the same level as an immortal emperor. However, compared to his true body, the only difference was that the amplification of his immortal emperor art, all heaven, was greatly reduced. Every time he lost a life, his amplification would decrease by 1. With the 10 true fates supporting his true body, his amplification would increase tenfold. However, after sacrificing his true body, the amplification would only increase by 9. The more lives he lost, the lower his battle prowess would be. Boom! However, after the true dragon life dissipated, another one of the 10 appeared. It was the Kuan Peng life. Zhou Tong looked inside himself and saw that the true dragon life in the 6th secret realm had lost its luster. The Kuan Peng was the brightest one right now. This meant that Zhou Tong was using the Kuan Peng life. Although the true dragon had fallen, this was also a kind of sacrifice to the Tao, offering the Tao of the true dragon. Zhou Tong had never felt that the Kuan Peng and the true dragon were so close, as if the true dragon and the Kuan Peng could merge perfectly with each other. My previous speculation was correct. Indeed, only after the Tao sacrifice can one perfectly fuse the 10 true fates into one. Zhou Tong was a little excited. His own path had been confirmed in this battle. Again, Zhou Tong's eyes lit up with unparalleled battle intent as he rushed towards the 10 progenitors. The Kuan Peng's Tao of transcendence was unparalleled. After reaching the apex of the immortal emperor realm, it gained unparalleled speed. Even the 10 progenitors might not be able to keep up with him. Alas, Zhou Tong was only an immortal emperor while the other progenitors were Tao sacrificers. He couldn't escape from the encirclement. As the encirclement got closer and closer, Zhou Tong self-detonated his true fate to force the 10 progenitors away. Then, he began a new resurrection and reincarnation. This time, it was the 9-leaf sword grass. With the appearance of the 9-leaf sword grass, his entire being turned into a sword aura and a sword light, sweeping across the battlefield. In just a moment, the sword rays scattered and cut through all obstacles. Even the plateau behind the progenitors seemed to have sensed the sharp rays and was violently shaking. Alas, the nine-leaf sword grass true fate also fell. Fight! Raging flames burned. Scorching flames erupted from Zhou Tong's new body. It was as if the heavens were ignited and the years were ignited. Even his own great Tao was ignited. The immortal phoenix True Fate's flames were incomparably ferocious. It even sacrificed its own Tao to increase its power by a level. However, it still didn't last long before it was defeated by the 10 great progenitors. Then, the Qilin, Mantis, Divine Striking Stone, Lightning Emperor, 9 Netherworlds Ao, and Heavenly Horned Ant also appeared one after another. Unfortunately, following the Tao sacrifice of the True Fate, the amplification of the Emperor Law, all heavens decreased layer by layer. At first, the true dragon life could still last for 2 hours, but later on, it became shorter and shorter. When the last heavenly horned ant True Fate appeared, his all heavens Emperor Law collapsed. All amplification had already disappeared. He could only rely on his own battle intent to amplify himself. In the end, he only lasted for a few minutes. Chapter 1554. Rumble. A cold saber light slashed across the battlefield, ending Zhou Tong's life. Finally, all of the strange progenitors calmed down a little and quietly watched everything unfold before them. "Is he really dead?" one progenitor asked. "He should be. We've killed all 11 of his lives. No matter how we calculate, we can't find any trace of him. He's dead." Another progenitor said, "Fortunately, he was exposed early. We killed him before he could take that step. This opponent is really strange. He's even stranger than us." Another progenitor sighed. The other progenitors nodded in unison at his words. Even though they had lived for countless epochs, they still could not imagine that someone like Zhou Tong could appear. Not only was he difficult to deal with, but he was also the bane of their race's core. Next, before we go into hibernation, we need to create another batch of path-end existences. Another progenitor looked at the other progenitors. Their race's immortal emperors had all fallen. The remaining strange substances couldn't create more immortal emperors, and those immortal emperors were their successors. As long as they had successors, they had nothing to fear and could maintain the number of progenitors. That's right. Several progenitors nodded and moved at the same time. Rumble. The entire plateau shook. Next, a blurry object appeared behind the 10 progenitors, making them seem even stranger, more ominous, and more terrifying. The blurry objects were 10 strange coffins. Some of the coffins were completely different from their eerie appearances. They were full of vitality, with green leaves appearing on them. Each leaf was scarier than a leaf from a world tree, enough to support a great world. Others were made of all-elemental, immortal metal. They had an unimaginable power, enough to burn the grand Tao and destroy heaven and earth, turning everything in the world into nothingness. There were also coffins that reeked of blood and contained a strange power, as if they were soaked in the blood of a black dog. The 10 coffins appeared behind the eerie progenitor. Each of them had a coffin, which made their auras even more terrifying. Their bodies emitted a strange and ominous aura. In fact, this was the final form of the eerie progenitors. After their coffins appeared, they would truly go all out to kill their opponents. When they fought Zhou Tong before, they didn't show such a stance because they were sure that Zhou Tong was only lucky, but he couldn't take a beating. Only when they faced Sure Hao, who was also in the Tao sacrifice realm, did they reveal this type of true skill. Boom! The 10 coffins trembled at the same time, opening a corner. Immediately, the myriad realms in the heavens wailed at the same time. Even the heavens seemed to be undergoing some strange changes. Different kinds of special mist drifted out from different coffins. black ashes drifted out of one of the coffins. After the ashes left the coffin, they turned into black mist. Gray mist drifted out of another coffin, and pale golden mist drifted out of another coffin. Each of the 10 coffins overflowed with a different ash-like substance. These substances didn't approach the eerie progenitors, instead quickly turning into 10 streaks of flowing light, making their way into the bodies of the 10 most powerful Daozu. Hong Long. Immediately afterwards, these Daozu became a bit different. They seemed to have undergone an unimaginable transformation, their auras continuously rising, and rising. In that instant, the auras of half-immortal emperors that were originally Daozu level immediately rose to immortal emperor level. In that instant, 10 great immortal emperors appeared on the eerie plateau. The immortal emperors killed by Zhou Tong before were all replenished at this moment. Let's leave behind a few more substances just in case. If we encounter something similar in the future, all of our inheritors being wiped out, then it will be troublesome. A eerie progenitor said. The other primogenitors nodded as well. More strange substances floated out of their corresponding coffins. Then, these substances quickly floated to their corresponding positions and disappeared. However, the eerie progenitor had already made arrangements. As long as an immortal emperor died, these substances would quickly create another one. At the same time, in the 10 heavenly grotto heaven divine ring, a point of true spirit condensed. Peerless indestructible and void indestructible worked at the same time, and the world's origin energy madly poured into the location of the true spirit. So that's how it is. So this is the so-called Tao sacrifice realm. Almost instantly, Zhou Tong understood what Tao sacrifice was. After abandoning 11 lives and abandoning all cultivation systems, he finally understood what it was. At the same time, there was a mirror in front of Zhou Tong. It displayed everything that had happened in the outside world, as well as the entire process of how the eerie progenitors had created immortal emperors. So this is how the eerie and ominous are created. Heavenly Emperor Huang must have seen the coffins behind them, so he concluded that the coffins were the key to killing them. Zhou Tong thought. However, it's time to go out and give them a surprise. At the same time, the 10 eerie progenitors were still leaving behind strange substances to give their descendants power. After a long time, accompanied by a loud boom, all the coffins finally closed completely, and the strange substances no longer leaked out. We've used up a lot this time. We need to hold an unprecedented sacrifice to make up for the losses. A white-haired progenitor said. The sacrificial ground was destroyed by that guy, and we need to use the origin energy to build a new one. The white-haired progenitor continued. Fine, let me do it. Boom. Accompanied by a sound, the coffin behind him opened again, pouring out a terrifying white mist. However, at this moment, a fist mark suddenly bloomed from the void and heavily bombarded the coffin. Then, with a crack, the coffin directly shattered. Immediately after, the Emperor's fist shook again, instantly shattering the white-haired progenitor. This turn of events left everyone flabbergasted. They saw Zhou Tong, who they originally thought had already perished, walk out from the void step by step. Moreover, he'd killed a progenitor and destroyed the key to his eternal life and resurrection, the coffin. This was a permanent loss of a progenitor, signifying that the 10 eerie progenitors were a thing of the past. Even if their descendants became immortal emperors, they couldn't rely on the coffin to become progenitors again. The 10 eerie progenitors had been reduced to 9. Chapter 1555. You! The other primogenitors stared at Zhou Tong, dumbfounded. They were furious, but their eyes were filled with shock and astonishment. He was actually still alive. He had already killed him 11 times, but he was still able to walk out in perfect condition? Boom! Previously, the coffin that was shattered by him erupted with an incomparably terrifying and indescribable substance. That was the source of the indescribable substance, a kind of white ash. It was a copious amount of white ash that filled the sky. Zhou Tong's gaze swept across the area, but he did not say anything. Instead, he simply stood in the air, and the strange substance that filled the air began to gather around him. Then, it completely disappeared when it was 3 feet away from him. The 10 Heavens divine ring had already begun to absorb and refine the strange and ominous substance. Although this thing was strange, it was still unable to do anything to the 10 Heavens divine ring. After being converted, this unknown substance had completely turned into the world's origin and settled within the 10 Heavens divine ring's world. This thing looks a bit like bone ash. Is it the bone ash of the owner of the 3-world coffin after he was cremated? So the 3-world coffin contained his bone ash. Zhou Tong already had some understanding of the substance. At the same time, he also realized why the flames of the immortal phoenix fate were so effective against the ominous substances. It turned out that the owner of the 3-world coffin was cremated in the end. But speaking of bone ash, isn't there an urn inside the 3-world coffin? Suddenly, Zhou Tong thought of another question. Then, he quickly realized what the urn was. Without a doubt, it was the urn from the future. Urn of the Celestial Emperor. Urn of the Celestial Emperor. So that thing is the closest thing to the source of the ominous. Zhou Tong couldn't help but ridicule in his heart. The white substance that filled the air surged into Zhou Tong's 10 Heavens divine ring like rivers flowing into the sea. Soon, Zhou Tong absorbed and purified all the strange substances that spread out from the coffin's explosion. The entire sky above the plateau was cleared up. Then, with a honglong sound, the entire world shook. The heavens resonated, but what followed was a terrifying aura that engulfed the myriad realms, engulfing the heavens. The boundless great Tao was burning, resplendent radiance illuminating the past and present. Zhou Tong dispersed his world domain and finally began his next advancement. He had indeed sacrificed to the Tao, but he could only be considered to have just entered this domain. Next, he would need to take another step forward to allow him to reach a deeper level in this domain. Boom! 10 true fates appeared around him at the same time, and then they merged above his head to form a single true fate. After the Tao sacrifice, Zhou Tong's path was clear. The 10 true fates no longer rejected each other and could easily fuse into one. Boom! Zhou Tong's aura was incomparably majestic, shaking the myriad realms and boundless worlds. His entire body was bathed in great Tao fiery light, as if he walked out from the great river of time, but also as if he was taking a stroll outside the world. At this moment, Zhou Tong's style illuminated the world. Regardless of whether it was the heavens or the lower realms' myriad realms, even the great river of time, his imprint was left behind. At this moment, Sure Hao, who was originally hiding himself, couldn't help but be shocked. He walked out from the world he was hiding in and raised his head to look towards the strange plateau. His eyes were incomparably deep, but he could clearly see the strange plateau's scene. It was precisely because he saw it that he was shocked inwardly. It was because he discovered that one of the strange primogenitors was missing. He could even see 1 or 2 coffin fragments in the void. It was clear that even the other party's coffin was destroyed. You actually sacrificed to the Tao at this time, and even directly killed a primogenitor? Sure Hao was also a bit stupefied. He had faced the 3 great primogenitors for countless years, yet he couldn't truly kill one. Meanwhile, Zhou Tong had only hurried over for a short period of time, yet he actually killed one? Moreover, the most terrifying thing was that he killed one while fighting 10 alone. At this moment, it wasn't just Sure Hao. In the heavens and heavens, all existences who reached Daozu's level sensed something, all of them looking towards the strange plateau. That is Tao friend Zhou? he advanced to the legendary Dao sacrifice realm. Luo Tianxian and Meng Hai were shocked as well. His cultivation speed was just too fast, right? It had only been a few days since he stood firmly at the immortal emperor level, yet he advanced again? At the same time, on the strange plateau, Zhou Tong advanced to the Dao sacrifice realm, at the same time allowing his sixth secret realm to transform a step further. The 10 great true fates merged into one, becoming a single true fate, becoming a single sixth secret realm. All of this caused his body to undergo an earth-shattering change. Boundless power surged within his body. The endless natural laws and systems were just too clear in his eyes, as if he could move any system and natural laws at will. This was especially the case after advancing into this domain. He felt as if his spirit even exceeded half a dimension, as if his entire being was going to transcend, overlook this world, overlook all of the cultivation systems in the heavens. He could sense that he could use things from any system, to the extent where he could even use the immortal emperor methods of others. This was a type of indescribable great freedom. He could sense that heaven and earth, time, world, natural laws, karma, everything could no longer restrict him. It was to the extent where at this step, he felt as if he could change the flow of history, change the past years, change everything. Dao sacrifice. This is the Dao sacrifice realm, an unimaginable realm. Zhou Tong was inwardly shaken by the terror of this realm. After sacrificing the great Dao, sacrificing the source, sacrificing the system, only then could one advance into the Dao sacrifice realm. This realm was already not something any cultivation system could reach. The reason why immortal emperors were called the end of the path level was because when any cultivation system reached this step, they would already reach the end of their path, no longer able to advance. Any cultivation system was like an internal river. Their end point might be a huge lake, and the fish that could swim to the end point was the end of the path level, the immortal emperor. However, a lake was still a lake. It was far from being as vast and boundless as the sea, but the river was already the end. If one wanted to go to the sea at this time, then the only way was to abandon the original river, in other words, abandon the cultivation system. This was the true meaning of the Dao sacrifice realm. However, abandoning it did not mean that one would be able to continue. No matter how strong the fish's vitality was, only death would await them after coming ashore. The only way to abandon the river was to evolve. From a fish to a beast, then to a bird. From fish to bird, one could soar in the sky. From fish to beast, one could run forward. The original meaning of the Dao sacrifice realm was actually a kind of evolution. The evolution of the source of life would allow cultivators to no longer rely on the system or the great Dao. At this step, they would form their own system and their own great Dao. It could even be said that they were the system and the Dao. Chapter 1556. If Dao sacrifice is an evolution, then what about the next step? Beyond the Dao sacrifice realm? Isn't this an even more original and magnificent evolution? Zhou Tong's heart was surging with excitement. He looked at the 9 primogenitors opposite him, his eyes filled with undisguised excitement and battle intent. Nice move. You purposely let us destroy your 11 lives so you can use us to completely remove the shackles holding you back. A golden-haired progenitor's eyes darkened to the extreme. You've long explored the path of Dao sacrifice. That's why you're acting like you're ready to fight to the death. You want to borrow our strength to take another step forward. Another black blood progenitor's voice was equally low and filled with endless fury. Not only these two, but the other 7 progenitors also wore ugly expressions. Zhou Tong's sneak attack just now had been too fatal. They had lost one of their progenitors, and even lost one of their eerie and ominous substances. They had lost one of their eerie and ominous lineages. This kind of loss had never been encountered in countless epochs. This person was definitely their number one enemy, both strange and ominous. So you have a 12th life, the 12th life after the 10 phantoms fused into one. I wonder if you can come back to life after this life is destroyed, another progenitor said, his murderous intent surging. This progenitor thought he'd figured out Zhou Tong's trick. He'd seen Zhou Tong's 10 fused lives and guessed the secret behind Zhou Tong's revival. Why don't you try and find out? As Zhou Tong spoke, some of the fragments scattered on the battlefield suddenly condensed towards Zhou Tong. In the end, they reformed into a bell. He'd even sacrificed his life for the sake of Tao's sacrifice. His bell naturally couldn't withstand such power and had long since been smashed to pieces by the eerie progenitors. Now that he'd reached his level, he could restore the bell to its peak with a single thought. Not only that, but Zhou Tong had also refined it further after ascending to Tao's sacrifice. He'd also fused the fragments of the eerie progenitor's coffin into the bell, further increasing its power and turning it into a supreme imperial weapon of Tao's sacrifice. At the same time, Zhou Tong's battle intent was being nurtured. His blood boiled and his aura grew sharper and sharper like a tidal wave that swept through the heavens. The reason Zhou Tong had been able to ascend so smoothly was due to the depth of his foundation. With so many true fates roaming the heavens and the 10 heavenly rings, the Qilin true fate was accumulating power and foundation. All of this allowed him to stand at the peak of the immortal Emperor realm and even touch the realm of Tao's sacrifice. Previously, he had comprehended the true meaning of the Tao offering through death, which allowed him to evolve his 6th secret realm. Consecutive breakthroughs in such a short period of time. All of this was because of the huge explosion brought about by his profound foundation. But now, Zhou Tong had ascended to Tao's sacrifice and even fused his 10 true fates into one. It could be said that he'd reached the apex of Tao's sacrifice. All the insights he'd gained from roaming the heavens had been exhausted, along with the shockwaves. If he wanted to ascend to the next level, he'd have to slowly accumulate and comprehend the Tao himself. While Zhou Tong was refining the bell, the eerie progenitors weren't idle either. A coffin appeared behind each of them. The coffins opened once again, and the most original strange substance floated out. It fused with the corresponding progenitor, causing a painful expression to appear on each of their faces. Even the progenitors that were created from the eerie matter couldn't withstand the pressure when they fused with the eerie matter. One could only imagine how powerful the energy was. Kill! Fight! After a moment of confrontation, Zhou Tong finished refining the bell and the eerie progenitor finished strengthening. Both sides let out a world-shaking battle cry at the same time. It resounded through the ages, causing the heavens and the heavens to tremble violently. The world resonated with their killing intent and battle intent. The resonating killing intent and battle intent affected the heavens and time, causing the entire world to become more chaotic. Existences half a step beyond the immortal Emperor realm erupted with such power. This kind of will and mentality was enough to affect countless living beings in the myriad realms. The impact would last for several epochs. A great battle broke out. At this moment, the murderous aura on the plateau tore through the sky and shook the myriad realms. This was a peerless battle that was rarely seen throughout the ages. Both Zhou Tong and the eerie progenitor went all out. After Zhou Tong's ascension, he seemed to be unparalleled. He swept through the 9 progenitors with ferocious battle prowess, completely different from before. After fusing with the 10 true fates, he no longer needed to actively display his imperial law. It was no longer an imperial law but his own strength. His normal state was 10 times the strength. If his base battle strength was 1 when he first reached the Tao sacrifice realm, then it was 10 now. After the 9 progenitors pushed their battle prowess to the limit, they became even stranger and more ominous. In particular, the 9 of them seemed to have joined together. Even their strange plateau seemed to have fused with them. Vaguely, a power beyond the Tao sacrifice realm erupted from their bodies. Rumble! Amidst the blinding light, the terrifying collision of imperial fists, and the booming bell waves, Zhou Tong fought madly. His hair was disheveled and his body was destroyed several times during the battle. After all, he was facing 9 progenitors with a joint attack. However, the 9 progenitors weren't unscathed either. The 9 progenitors' expressions became more painful. They were injured by Zhou Tong's explosive battle prowess. If it wasn't for the strange substance continuously fusing into their bodies, some of them might have been resurrected. As the battle continued, Zhou Tong's hair fluttered in the wind. The excitement in his eyes intensified, erupting with resplendent light. His battle intent soared, his heartbeat accelerated, his blood boiled, and his battle intent surged through the years. Fighting immortals was his Tao. He grew in battle, advanced in battle, and even enjoyed it. This was especially true in a battle where he was at a disadvantage. Fight! 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 Zhou Tong opened his mouth and roared countless battle cries. Battle intent poured out from his body like a tide, rushing towards the 9 progenitors wave after wave. The 9 progenitors' expressions were somewhat ugly. They could see that Zhou Tong was even more difficult to deal with than desolation. That fanatical battle intent wasn't some kind of obsession or unyielding heart, but a true enjoyment, a true joy in battle. Chapter 1557. At this moment, all of the heavens and even high heavens felt a supreme battle intent. It was to the extent where many cultivators who couldn't watch this battle had their minds engraved with an eternal scene of this battle. Fight! Under the excited battle cries, under the fanatical battle intent, Zhou Tong slaughtered his way towards the 9 great ancestors. His entire body released resplendent radiance, illuminating the heavens. Blood energy rushed into the heavens, traversing endless time. Bell fluctuations lingered, shaking the endless skies. The battle became more and more bitter. Zhou Tong's entire body was covered in blood, covered in cracks. Meanwhile, the faces of the 9 great ancestors became more and more distorted, as if they suffered unimaginable pain. The coffins behind them also released even more powerful and dense unknown matter. Dang! Finally, following the final bell sound, the entire plateau seemed to have been completely cut off from the heavens and high heavens. All of the projected scenes completely disappeared. Within a hidden great world, the light in Sure Hao's eyes dimmed slightly. At this time, the willow deity in the lightning pool asked, "What happened? Did something happen to the person you spoke of?" "It's a good thing." He broke through his cultivation realm, and he obtained the greatest battle result that I haven't been able to obtain in so many great eras. He permanently erased the name of a primogenitor. Sure Hao said softly. However, despite this being the case, there are still 9 primogenitors. The following years will be difficult to endure. Sure Hao could clearly see that after advancing to the Tao sacrifice realm and merging that vicious 10-like thing within his body, his strength was definitely not below his peak, to the extent where it vaguely felt a bit stronger. However, this type of strength was still only enough to face 3 primogenitors at full strength. He couldn't defeat 4 great primogenitors, so when facing 5 great primogenitors, he could only run. However now, when facing 9 great primogenitors, this battle was just a test of how long he could last. Sure Hao knew that if his original body took action, he would definitely be able to last a bit longer. However, he would only be able to last a bit longer, unable to play any decisive role. Right now, he was gambling on whether Zhou Tong could exhaust a large amount of their strength. When the time came, these primogenitors would all fall asleep. Only then would his plan be even more successful, evading the 9 great primogenitors' joint deductions. That's not all. Strange and Ominous used the strange substance to create 10 great immortal emperors. Once these 10 great immortal emperors enter heaven and heaven, it'll be troublesome. Moreover, Zhou Tong has exhausted a large amount of the strange and unknown substances. If this battle continues, their grand ritual will probably be restored. Sure Hao muttered to himself for a bit, and then he casually slapped his own lightning pool. An enormous figure appeared from within the lightning pool. This person was the corpse immortal emperor of the past. Sure Hao had always been trying to find a way to revive this person, only he was too deeply contaminated by the darkness. Even now, he still hadn't completely purified the darkness consciousness. Fine, time is of the essence, so the plan needs to be sped up. I'll leave the last bit of dark consciousness to you. Sure Hao woke up the corpse immortal emperor. Then, he produced a case that looked like it was refined from bronze, handing it to the corpse immortal emperor as well. After arranging everything, Sure Hao quickly went into hiding again. At this moment, the corpse immortal emperor opened her eyes. Meanwhile, in the high heavens, Luo Tianxian and Meng Hai were also paying attention to the battle on the plateau. However, in the end, following a streak of dazzling radiance, the plateau that appeared also finally disappeared. Meanwhile, at this time, Luo Tianxian and Meng Hai also knew that unless they personally hurried over to the battlefield, they definitely wouldn't be able to witness this world-shocking battle. I never expected there to actually be 10 great ancestors, Luo Tianxian said with a sigh. It seems like the coffins behind these ancestors are their undying secret. Dao friend Zhou eliminated one ancestor. His merit is immeasurable. Meng Hai's voice carried a trace of bitterness, not feeling the slightest bit of joy. It was because there were just too many ancestors. Even if one was eliminated, there were still 9 left. Indeed, 9 great ancestors. Luo Tianxian also released a sigh. The strange and ominous strength was too great. Even if one ancestor was killed, for them, it still wasn't enough to make them feel any pain. Our high heavens is also going to change. At this time, Kuan Peng old ancestor said from the side. What is the meaning of this? Meng Hai asked in return. As long as those coffins aren't removed, they will be able to produce an endless stream of peak-level experts. If history is reflected again, I fear that we will still suffer a crushing defeat. Instead of this, we might as well take the initiative to attack, fight a great battle against the strange, and train our troops. Kuan Peng old ancestor's voice was extremely grave. In that instant, Luo Tianxian, Meng Hai, and even the other Daozu not far away all became silent. In the end, Luo Tianxian nodded and said, correct, compared to the strange, the past glory is all useless. We have to take the initiative to attack, train our troop. As long as we can produce another existence like Huang or Dao Friend Zhou, there will still be hope in the future. Only, I feel a bit sorry for those Dao friends. Meng Hai also released a sigh. Meng Hai also understood that even if their group of old friends were revived, they wouldn't be of much use in the future. The ones who truly had hope of resisting the strange and ominous were the Dao sacrifice level experts. Their group of old friends basically didn't have any hope of advancing to this level. After truly seeing the strange race's full strength, they also realized that the future and hope were more important than the past glory and glory. At the same time, in the myriad realms of the lower realms, Yi Fan, No Beginning, Vicious, the Divine Emperor, and some of their clansmen and subordinates were all standing in an immortal realm fragment. Although it was just a glimpse, Dao Friend Zhou slaughtered his way into the strange race's main camp. No Beginning said softly. No Beginning said softly, but this strange and ominous strength is beyond imagination. I don't know if he can hold on. The strange and ominous, is that the strength of an immortal emperor? Yi Fan was also somewhat fascinated. He had only caught a glimpse of this terrifying aura and strength, but it had caused Yi Fan's body, soul, and spirit to tremble. Unimaginable, unfathomable, Vicious also said. Don't stare at the immortal emperor-level experts. We can't even beat these small fries. The divine emperor on the side was also somewhat helpless. They were currently in an immortal realm fragment. This fragment was almost completely contaminated, and as far as the eye could see, there were demons and ghosts everywhere. Previously, when the strange and ominous races were preparing for the grand sacrifice to the all-heavens, 2 immortal emperors came to the lower realms. They brought with them a large amount of ominous matter, which contaminated countless great realms. Zhou Tong can advance through endless battles and even cultivate to the immortal emperor level. If he can slaughter his way into the strange race's main camp, we can do it too. Let's get rid of this group of monsters first. Yi Fan roared and charged forward first. The battle instantly began. At this moment, whether it was on the plateau, the high heavens, or the myriad realms of the lower realms, everyone was fighting. This was a great battle between the strange and ominous races and the normal cultivators. This was also a long battle. At this moment, the all-heavens and the high heavens had adopted the same strategy to deal with the strange and ominous races. That was war, that was training. There was no compromise. This was a battle for survival, a battle for the orthodoxy of the heavens and earth. Even with the time shuttle, they would not compromise or retreat. This period of time was also the most tragic period for the all-heavens and the high heavens. Chapter 1558. The heavens were in chaos. This was an extremely chaotic period of time. The high heavens, the lower world, and the strange plateau were all fighting. This era was too terrifying. There were endless battles. All kinds of great Daos and all kinds of cultivation systems in the heavens intertwined. This was an unimaginably glorious era, but it was also an incomparably terrifying era of darkness. In this era, geniuses competed. Regardless of whether it was the high heavens or the lower world, countless experts and geniuses emerged. In the hundreds of thousands of years of war, there were also many creatures who successfully broke through to the immortal king realm. Yi Fan, No Beginning, Vicious, the 3 of them were the first to rise above the rest. Amidst the endless battles and battles, amidst the collisions of various systems and great Tao, they leapt up, breaking through the immortal king realm, becoming half-immortal emperor-level experts. Next was the Divine Emperor, the Lotus Emperor, and the others. In the later period, even Yen Ryu broke through to this realm. As Yi Fan and the others broke through, the strange plateau and the ominous plateau also sensed the power and extraordinariness of the heaven-shrouding technique. They began to pollute this system with all their might, wanting to cut off the cultivation path of this system's successors. Not only that, but some other cultivation systems passed down from the high heavens were also polluted. The strange plateau and the ominous plateau directly broke the stalemate between the two sides. However, on this day the heavens seemed to have been split open. A bright light wrapped in endless pollen descended. A woman slashed open the ancient sky with a sword, causing countless spirits to appear between heaven and earth. The pollen path that had been silent for countless years suddenly descended at this moment, reappearing in the heavens. "Sister, you've actually revived." Luo Tianxian, who was confronting the strange plateau and the immortal emperor realm experts, couldn't help but be moved when she saw this woman. A trace of joy appeared in her expression of despair. "Fellow Taoist Ling, you've returned at the right time." Meng Hai finally revealed a trace of joy. The Pollen Emperor had reappeared. One had to know that in all the confrontations and battles over the years, the strange side still had 10 immortal emperors. The reason why these immortal emperors did not wreak havoc in the lower realms was because of Luo Tianxian and Meng Hai's restraint. Of course, these 10 celestial emperors were not as strong as the group that Zhou Tong had killed. They had just advanced to the celestial emperor realm and had not fully mastered their celestial emperor realm strength. In addition, the corpse immortal emperor was causing trouble and restraining them. That was why Luo Tianxian and Meng Hai could barely hold on all these years. However, as the battle continued, the other party's control over the strength of an immortal emperor grew stronger and stronger. He was even able to unleash some incomparably terrifying and strange powers. Gradually, the two of them felt that their strength was falling short of their desire. Even though Ancestor Kuan-Peng's strength was constantly increasing, it was a test of time between standing firmly at the Immortal Emperor level and truly entering the Immortal Emperor level. The speed at which he was becoming stronger was far slower than the speed at which Eri was becoming stronger. However, at this time, the resurrection of the Flower Emperor was tantamount to a cardiac stimulant. It gave Luo Tianxian and Meng Hai another Taoist friend, and they could hold on for a while longer. The battle continued. The Flower Emperor, Luo Tianxian, and Meng Hai were fighting in the high heavens. The corpse Immortal Emperor was also restraining two eerie Immortal Emperors. Unfortunately, the number of Immortal Emperors was still not enough. It was extremely difficult for 4 Immortal Emperors to fight against 10 eerie Immortal Emperors. Boom! However, on this day the heavens and earth collapsed. A terrifying force erupted from the eerie Immortal Plateau and swept across the high heavens, the heavens and time. At the same time, a terrifying phenomenon reverberated in the heavens and the high heavens. Blood rained down and all living things wailed. This force was so terrifying that it was enough to silence all the battles. This phenomenon was so terrifying that it shocked everyone. Any immortal emperor could understand what this phenomenon meant. An emperor collapse. An immortal emperor collapsed? This aura and the feeling of the great Tao are very strange. Taoist Zhou killed another primogenitor? Luo Tianxian was dumbfounded. He's still holding on? This battle strength, this tenacity, it's unbelievable. Meng Hai was also shocked. They had 4 immortal emperors and barely restrained 10 eerie immortal emperors. On Zhou Tong's side, he fought 9 primogenitors alone for 100,000 years and still managed to defeat one of them? The Flower Emperor was also shocked. This was too fierce. Return quickly. At the same time, on the eerie immortal plateau, a voice reverberated, causing all the immortal emperors to be stunned. Then, their expressions changed and they all retreated without looking back. They ran away? The Flower Emperor was stunned. But soon, Meng Hai's voice came. They didn't run away. Taoist Zhou beat them until they couldn't retreat. The 9 primogenitors couldn't do anything to him, so they asked the immortal emperors to return with him. We can't let them escape. Meng Hai reacted quickly and immediately attacked the 2 immortal emperors nearby. Luo Tianxian and the Flower Emperor also attacked at the same time and blocked the 2 immortal emperors. Hao Zi, don't run. The corpse Immortal Emperor was even more ferocious. He abandoned the stronger Immortal Emperor and chased after the Immortal Emperor who ran slower. However, with the eerie Immortal Plateau's ominous order to return quickly, the All Heavens and High Heavens finally caught their breath and returned. After 100,000 years of war, both High Heavens and the All Heavens were exhausted. The chaos and prosperity finally came to an end. Not only were the living beings exhausted, even the whole world seemed to be tired. The All Heavens entered the age of Dharma ending. Even High Heavens was slightly affected and the essence of heaven and earth weakened a lot. With the eerie Immortal Plateau and the age of Dharma ending, this chaotic era finally calmed down. However, the battle between the higher-ups didn't stop. Luo Tianxian, Meng Hai, and the Flower Emperor, although it was difficult for each of them to fight against 2 immortal emperors, they still managed to hold on. The corpse Immortal Emperor was also chasing after an Immortal Emperor. On the eerie Immortal Plateau's side, 7 of the 10 Immortal Emperors were pinned down. In the end, only 3 Immortal Emperors returned to the plateau. At this moment, on the plateau, ha ha ha! Zhou Tong was bleeding all over and his body was cracked. He didn't know how many times he had been shattered, but his battle intent didn't decrease. He looked up to the sky and laughed maniacally. The 9 progenitors are only SOSO. Again. The faces of the 8 progenitors were ashen. Another one of their progenitors had been killed. Even the coffin couldn't revive him. Although he had made his opponent pay the price of blood and killed him, he had been resurrected again. At this moment, they were protecting the only ownerless coffin and glaring at Zhou Tong. They were also angry and sullen. What the hell was this opponent? What happened to the last life? How did he come back to life? They were known as eternal immortals, but they didn't have such a disgusting resurrection ability. Boom! At this moment, one of the immortal emperors who had rushed back suddenly entered the ownerless coffin. A moment later, heaven and earth rumbled, and another progenitor was born. 9 of the 8 progenitors were back. Chapter 1559. Time passed by slowly, and the world changed. The glory of the past had long ended, leaving behind magnificent ruins and wreckage. A new era had arrived, rebuilding from the ruins and blooming vitality in the withered world. After hundreds of thousands of years of war, the heavens and the high heavens were emptied. Even the strange and ominous creatures were exhausted. In the following period of recuperation, both the high heavens and the myriad realms calmed down, especially the heavens, which fell into a long period of Dharma-ending age. This Dharma-ending age was longer than the past. No one knew how long this period of Dharma-ending age would last. It could be millions of years or tens of millions of years. Boom! On this day, the high heavens, which had been peaceful for a long time, finally erupted with an earth-shattering sound. The aura of an immortal emperor covered the sky and earth, shaking the entire high heavens. A huge Kunpring soared into the sky from the high heavens and arrived at the most dangerous battlefield in the high heavens. On the battlefield there were 9 figures. 6 of them released a terrifying ominous substance. They joined forces and almost completely suppressed the 3 opponents. Although the strange immortal emperors were formed quickly, they were still immortal emperors after all. After such a long battle and confrontation, their strength was already very good. With the 6 of them working together, they could naturally suppress the 3 opponents. "Haha, I'm coming!" The Kunpring ancestor roared and rushed into the battlefield, cooperating with Luo Tianxian and the others to resist the power of the 6 strange, immortal emperors. The power that was gradually losing balance was balanced again in an instant. Time passed year after year. Whether it was the high heavens or the myriad realms, it was peaceful. The whole world was dead silent. The river of time was like an ancient well without ripples. There were almost no prodigies who came out to cause trouble. However, in this ruin, there were signs of vitality emerging. The Dharma-ending age was slowly passing. Whether it was the high heavens or the myriad realms, they were about to welcome a new vitality. All the major cultivation systems had basically collapsed from the contamination. Only a few cultivation systems with immortal emperors at the front were still able to resist the strange contamination. Among them, the pollen system was naturally one of the most powerful systems. In the heavens and the high heavens there were large areas of regions that cultivated this method. On this day, in the high heavens, boom! With a loud boom, the aura of an immortal emperor surged out once again, shrouding the entire high heavens. The tens of millions of years of silence during the Age of Chaos didn't affect the progress of the true geniuses. At the end of the Age of Chaos, the heavens and high heavens welcomed another era of prosperity. High heavens gave birth to another immortal emperor. This immortal emperor's aura was born from the tyrant body's bloodline. The person who appeared was Zhou Tong's youngest son, Zhou Rui, who was the most talented. Good. A sect with 2 emperors. Emperor Qing, who was in seclusion, could not help but exclaim after sensing this aura. Zhou Rui was the son of Zhou Tong and Yenru. Naturally, he had the bloodline of the Azure Supreme Tharch. His breakthrough also made the Azure Supreme Tharch happy. After breaking through, Zhou Rui soared into the sky just like the Kuanping ancestor. He came to the battlefield that had lasted for millions of years to help the 4 immortal emperors. Now the situation had changed. Now it was the high heavens' 5 thearchs against the strange 6 thearchs. After completely abandoning the reflection of history, the true terror of the high heavens was revealed. Now that 5 immortal emperors moved out, the strange 6 immortal emperors couldn't gain any advantage. This was still because Luo Tianxian, Meng Hai, and the Flower Powder Emperor were greatly exhausted from the 1,000 years of confrontation. However, with the appearance of the Kuanping ancestor and Zhou Rui, these 3 immortal emperors already had a chance to catch their breath. The situation would reverse bit by bit. Meanwhile, on the other side, in that extremely secretive world, Shi Hao Yifan, without beginning, and Vicious sat across from each other. Right now, Willow Deity still hadn't completely recovered, so there were only 4 immortal emperors on their side. I feel like there is already no need to continue the plan. Without beginning said. After all these years, the strange and ominous haven't made any movements. The ancestors have never moved out. As for the other immortal emperors, they have basically been stopped by high heavens. I can foresee that Zhou Tong should really be able to stop the 9 great ancestors. Yi Fan also said, if we take action now, it might be the final strike that will break the balance. However, how do you not know that this is a trap? Shi Hao asked after remaining silent for a bit. During this period of hiding, during the cultivationless age, he didn't dare investigate the situation on the other side of the plateau. It was because he knew that if the strange ancestor didn't die, as long as he investigated, he would quickly be deduced by the strange ancestor. From then on, his entire plan would completely collapse. In this type of situation, not only did he not take the initiative to release any power, he even had to continuously restrain himself to prevent the strange and ominous from detecting him in the slightest. At the same time, he didn't believe that Zhou Tong could hold on until now, because this wasn't realistic at all. They were both in the Tao sacrifice realm, so Shi Hao understood the strength of this realm clearly. Even if it was 1 against 9, there was no way he could hold on. This was especially the case after persisting for more than 100,000 years and killing a primogenitor. The other immortal emperors who weren't hindered by the strange and ominous all returned. At that time, it wouldn't be as simple as 1 against 9. There were no Tao sacrifice realm existences who could withstand this type of attack. Let's start the war again, Yi Fan said with a sunken voice. The heavens have already sunk for an endless amount of time. Now that the flourishing age has descended, let's advance through battle. It's also a good opportunity to probe the situation of the strange and ominous. The situation on the plateau's side really is worrying, Yi Fan said. Shi Hao remained silent for a bit, and then he nodded. The current situation was indeed much better than what he had imagined before. Originally, he was the only true immortal emperor-level existence. Even Willow Deity was still recuperating in his law pool. Shi Hao searched through the heavens, but he couldn't find a single hope. High heavens only had Luo Tianxian and Meng Hai's 2 emperors, while they were still unrealistic in trying to restore the past. However, with Zhou Tong's appearance, everything changed. On High Heaven's side, a Kuanping old ancestor who exceeded his expectations appeared. This was an existence he never considered. Then, the Flower Powder Emperor also unexpectedly appeared. According to normal reasoning, the Flower Powder Emperor shouldn't have revived so quickly. There was also Zhou Tong's son, who actually became an immortal emperor. The appearance of these 3 great immortal emperors could change the situation to a great extent. Meanwhile, on their side, apart from himself, there was still Yi Fan, without beginning, and Empress. Even if Willow Deity hadn't completely recovered, This type of strength was still enough to challenge the strange side. The only flaw was that he was still the only one who reached the Tao sacrifice realm. Even Yi Fan, who was closest to this realm, still hadn't reached this level. Can this type of strength really completely wipe out the 10 great primogenitors? Sure, Hao wasn't sure. However, following their decision, the battle situation began again. Chapter 1560. In the endless regions of the heavens, the chaos of war erupted once more. Under Shi Hao, Yi Fan, and the others' secret instigation, a few heavenly talents and experts in this flourishing age accidentally discovered strange and ominous traces, and then chased after them, triggering a great battle in the heavens. What is that thing? However, not long after the great battle began, the skies above the heavens felt as if the sky became blurry, as if it was a dream, only to see that in the endless distance, something gradually became clear, appearing before everyone's eyes. In that instant, the people of the various great worlds were all shaken, all of them panicking. It was as if a world-shaking great event was about to erupt between heaven and earth. They only saw a brand new altar slowly appear from the void, appearing outside the world. Even though it looked blurry, it possessed a type of grand and majestic aura, intimidating to one's soul. During this period of time, the strange and ominous naturally wouldn't remain idle. Their ancestors were still fighting a great battle against Zhou Tong, but the immortal emperors below began to rebuild the altar. The sacrificial altar was their foundation, the source of their power. This was especially the case after Zhou Tong exhausted too much of their strange matter, unable to make ends meet. If they still didn't sacrifice, they themselves might slowly wither away bit by bit. Right now, in the heavens, following the appearance of this altar, regardless of who it was, regardless of where they were, they all felt as if doomsday was descending. The great sacrifice is about to begin. An ice-cold and ruthless voice sounded from the altar. The strange and ominous immortal emperor appeared in this world again, about to carry out another great sacrifice to the heavens. Hong Long. Almost in an instant a great world was blasted through. A golden-haired palm ruthlessly pressed down from the heavens above, directly making the entire great world collapse. Even though there were immortal king-level existences who defied the heavens, everything was futile. Before they could even approach that great hand, they directly collapsed, turning into bloody mist. Ah! Countless miserable cries sounded from the great world. However, it was still useless. The one who took action was an immortal emperor. He shattered the entire great world, turning all creatures into bloody mist. In the end, they were all grabbed by his hand, placed on the altar. The entire process was incomparably bloody. The life of an entire world was sacrificed just like that. However, this was only the beginning. The uncanny and ominous had been exhausted by Zhou Tong to the point that they were at their wits' end. Only by conducting an unprecedented ritual could they make up for their losses. Bastard! Wu Shi, who saw this from afar, was furious. He shot into the sky and charged towards the altar. He, who was already at the immortal emperor realm, was fearless and domineering. He directly charged into the altar. Wait! Seeing that Ruthless was about to attack, Yi Fan stopped him in time and said, "These two immortal emperors shouldn't be able to do anything to no beginning in a short time. Let's see what other tricks strange and ominous has up their sleeve." The bell waves on the altar were vast and mighty. Emperor No Beginning flipped his palm and time reversed. The most terrifying power of time bloomed in his hand and attacked the two strange, immortal emperors. Boom! But at this time, the anomalies also came out in full force. Many figures flew out. They were not targeting No Beginning, but were heading to other great worlds. To them, the most important thing was the offerings. Only with enough sacrifices would they be able to survive this calamity. In an instant, the world turned upside down and countless great worlds collapsed. Seeing this, Ruthless couldn't help but take action. With her immortal emperor's strength, she could easily kill all the ominous Daozu. With her protection, the ominous Daozu couldn't continue to search for offerings for their grand ritual. As for those below Daozu's level, they were completely taken care of by others. The strength of the anomalies relied heavily on the ominous and ominous substances. But now, their progenitors, who were immortal emperors, didn't have enough of the ominous substances. How could the rest of their people rely on the ominous substances to break through? Therefore, their strength hadn't grown much over the years. It was far slower than the all heavens and high heavens. However, at this time, suddenly, a palm pressed down from the sky, slamming down heavily on No Sure's body, causing him to explode. Boom! Just as the palm was about to strike a second time, Ruthless reacted in time to block the attack. Then, No Beginning's body reformed far away from the altar. At the immortal emperor level, even if he was destroyed several times, he could still recover. However, after No Beginning recovered, he looked in a certain direction with a grave expression. There was a figure covered in black blood and a coffin made of all-elemental immortal gold behind him. This person walked out from the ominous plateau and looked down at all the figures below. Although he looked proud of the all heavens, anyone could see that he wasn't in good condition. His body looked like it was glued together with tape. Even the immortal gold coffin behind him was full of cracks, as if it had almost been destroyed. Progenitor! Where's that ominous thing? The two immortal emperors on the altar couldn't help but exclaim. Their progenitor had actually come out. Could it be that the ominous thing that had been fighting on the plateau for millions of years had been killed by their progenitor? Correct, the strange side called Zhou ominous thing. It was because he revived too many times, as if no matter how they fought, no matter how they killed him, he would always revive. That was why they called Zhou ominous thing. No matter how tenacious his life force is, after being killed by us for millions of years, he will still die forever. This progenitor said with a sneer. The strange progenitor came out. It seems like Zhou really is in danger. Yifan's mind also sunk. However, he came out with an injured body? Moreover, why is he the only one that came out? What about the other progenitors? Sure Hao's eyes narrowed slightly, secretly observing. If the number of progenitors decreased again, he wouldn't bother with any plans, directly taking action. In reality, that ominous thing is quite stunning, fighting the 9 of us alone, yet still able to obtain this type of result. It delayed us for such a long time. At this time, the second progenitor also appeared. He was just like the first progenitor, his entire body covered in terrifying injuries. The wooden coffin behind him was also seriously damaged. It originally looked full of vitality, but now it was deathly still. After millions of years, our progenitors have all changed because of him. The third progenitor appeared. However, he was still defeated in the end. We killed him 65 times, the last time we killed him 100,000 years ago. He still didn't appear again. The fourth progenitor also appeared. That is why we came to the conclusion that he is already gone. The fifth progenitor also appeared. Today we will offer a great sacrifice to the heavens, a great sacrifice to the heavens. The sixth progenitor appeared. However, there were still only 6 of them. The strange progenitors were already reduced to the final 6. Chapter 1561. Honglong. Incomparably concentrated blood-colored lightning appeared in the sky. Black rain poured down. The figures of the 6 great ancestors appeared, descending on the new altar. They overlooked the myriad realms of the heavens, overlooking the tens of millions of years of recuperation. To them, the millions of years of rest and recuperation in the multiverse, as well as the current resplendent world, were all nourishment for them. They were all offerings that could be used to restore their race. When they saw these 6 ancestors, Yi Fan, No Beginning, Vicious, and the others all felt a bit bitter inside. In these tens of millions of years, going from immortal king to peak immortal emperor was already pretty much their limit. There was still a bit of distance from the highest Tao sacrifice realm. If everything went smoothly, they would need at least several million years of consolidation, as well as a resolute heart. You all are scared. No Beginning recovered a bit from his injuries, dispelling the strange and unknown matter from his body. He looked at these ancestors. If you say it like that, then it makes sense. You all developed too quickly. One of the ancestors didn't hide their weakness at all. If it was before, there was no way these ancestors would show weakness before No Beginning and the others. However, Zhou Tong already beat them until they were scared. They were truly scared that if things continued to develop, another undying thing like Zhou Tong would appear. Then, they would truly reach their end. However, right at this time, a trace of shock appeared in the eyes of one of the ancestors. He seemed to have sensed something, and then he began to quickly deduce. When the other ancestors saw this, they also seemed to have sensed something. Together with the ancestor from before, endless great Tao patterns erupted from their bodies, vaguely forming an enormous net that began to spread towards the tens of thousands of realms, high heavens every corner. In that instant, the hidden Shi Hao and Yi Fan both felt a chill run down their spines. In that instant, the two of them understood. The strange and ominous had already vaguely sensed something. Chong! Almost in that instant, an incomparably resplendent sword radiance shone in the void, severing the great river of time, making the tens of thousands of realms become still. Only an unmatched sword radiance flickered in the void. It cut through the darkness, cutting through time, illuminating the past, present, and future. Pooh! A progenitor was sent flying before exploding in the air. His body continued to crumble and turned into a strange and ominous mist. Boom! In the next instant, a resplendent fist mark also lit up. The vast and boundless fist mark seemed to have turned the myriad realms into a small boat in the ocean, rising and falling with the fist mark. This punch carried unparalleled momentum and struck a progenitor, causing his body to explode. The other primogenitors acted at the same time to stop the next attack. At this time, the attackers appeared in front of the 6 primogenitors. They were none other than Shi Hao and Yi Fan. At the same time, Without Beginning and Vicious stood beside Shi Hao and Yi Fan. The 4 immortal emperors faced off against the strange 6 ancestors. Kill! Both sides moved at the same time. Shi Hao's strength was the strongest. His sword radiance swept out, immediately separating the 3 ancestors. Then, he fought the 3 ancestors with all of his strength. Meanwhile, on the other side, Yi Fan, Without Beginning, and Vicious were also fighting a great battle against a progenitor. The battle was intense. The myriad realms and the great river of time were shaken. Heavens! The 5 immortal emperors who were originally facing the strange 6 immortal emperors also diverted some of their attention to watch the battle of the myriad realms. Huang is actually still here? Luo Tianxian was also a bit shocked. Back then, she clearly saw Zhou Tong and Huang fight a great battle against the primogenitors. Huang should have already been killed, so why did he appear now? Back then, it should be Dao Friend Zhou who fought for a chance for Huang to live. The Flower Powder Emperor said. However, they are facing the strange 6 primogenitors, together with 2 immortal emperors, so they definitely aren't their opponents. Now that we have strength to spare, we should head over to provide assistance. Meng Hai spoke. He was one of the immortal emperors in heavens who cared about the world the most. I'll go. The Flower Powder Emperor didn't think too much, directly saying this. Back then, Dao Friend Zhou passed down a secret technique to me. Although I used this technique to revive myself, I only improved half a step from my peak. I didn't achieve the true effect of the secret technique. The Flower Powder Emperor said softly, Now, I can use this battle to try and see if I can truly break through to the Tao sacrifice realm. As soon as her voice fell, the Flower Powder Emperor immediately got up and broke away from the confrontation, rushing towards the myriad realms. However, with the departure of the Flower Powder Emperor, the Heaven's immortal emperors who originally had the upper hand were now at a disadvantage again. Among the four immortal emperors, although Luo Tianxian and Meng Hai were extremely powerful, they had also used up more than half of their origin and were no longer at their peak state. Zhou Rui and Kuanping Old Ancestor had just advanced to the immortal emperor realm not long ago, so it was about enough for them to hold off one of the strange immortal emperors. Boom! The Flower Powder Emperor's arrival immediately improved the situation of the lower realms. She suppressed the remaining two immortal emperors on the strange side alone, preventing them from starting the ritual. However, while the battle was going on the strange plateau on the other side, a ripple appeared in the void and Zhou Tong stepped out from the ripple. At this moment, his body was emitting a brilliant light. There seemed to be an incomparably mysterious object in his body. All the light came from this object. Every ray of light represented that the object was slowly dissipating. This object was Zhou Tong's sixth secret realm, which was also the fusion of the 10 true fates. According to Zhou Tong's deduction, when all 10 true fates merged into the sixth secret realm, he would become an immortal emperor. When all 10 true fates merged into one true fate, he would reach the Tao sacrifice realm. When the sixth secret realm completely melted into his body, he would truly surpass the immortal emperor realm. In the previous 10 million years of war, Zhou Tong grew stronger as he fought. In the beginning, he would be killed by the strange progenitor every 2 to 3 years. After that, he would die once in a few decades, then once in 100 years, 1,000 years, and 10,000 years. Before his last death, he hadn't felt any life-threatening danger for 5 million years. In the process of becoming stronger, the more he fought, the clearer his understanding of the sixth secret realm and his own Tao path became. Therefore, he naturally sensed the opportunity to fuse the sixth secret realm with his body during the battle. Therefore, he died again and used his 10 Grotto Heavens divine ring to accumulate the gains from the past years. After that, he successfully broke through. They came out in full force. Looks like they thought I was dead, so they couldn't wait to harvest the heavens. Zhou Tong looked at the plateau and smiled. Although he was surrounded by light, none of the strange and unknown races near the plateau could see him. It was as if he didn't exist in this world. In fact, even if the strange progenitor was here, they wouldn't be able to see his shadow or sense his existence, let alone these strange and unknown races that weren't even Daozu. Just like the two-dimensional paper people, they would never be able to sense the three-dimensional high-dimensional creatures. Zhou Tong didn't deliberately hide it. It was just that he was in the state of breaking through, so he naturally ascended. To break through this realm, I either have to slowly fuse and advance bit by bit, or use a large amount of energy to trigger a qualitative change to speed up. With my current level, the 10 Grotto Heavens divine ring is indeed the best place to absorb energy. However, I can't just let the world I've been managing for so long deteriorate like this. Zhou Tong could absorb the energy inside the 10 Grotto Heavens divine ring as nourishment to accelerate his advancement, but this advancement would cause damage to the world inside the 10 Grotto Heavens divine ring. The best way was to find other things and energy to replace it. He took a step forward, and his entire person had already entered the strange plateau. This plateau was like a maze. Without strange and ominous immortal emperors leading the way, it would be impossible for one to enter. However, before this high-dimensional creature, all of this was as easy as looking at the lines on one's palm. He knew it like the back of his hand, and there was no need for any guidance or guidance. All of this maze and fog didn't exist before him. He could enter and exit as he wished. Zhou Tong walked past some of the strange creatures, and all the strange and unknown creatures disintegrated in an instant, disappearing into nothingness as if they had never existed. In fact, as Zhou Tong's power spread out, all of the strange and unknown creatures scattered like smoke and dust. Their bodies, souls, powers, and laws all disappeared. Even the traces of their existence seemed to have been erased. Even in the long river of time, no traces of them could be found. Even the ancestors who were fighting against Shi Hao and the others in the distant heavens didn't notice anything. They even thought that they had already turned out in full force, and that their home wasn't protected to begin with. Finally, Zhou Tong arrived at the innermost depths of the strange plateau. His gaze was calm as he quietly looked at the innermost depths of the plateau. This place was the most strange and inauspicious place in this world. Ordinary Daozu might mutate just by taking a few breaths here. Only immortal emperor-level existences could remain safe and sound in this place. Reverse. Zhou Tong's eyes were deep as he quietly watched the things that had happened here. Time continuously reversed before his eyes. He saw a certain immortal emperor from high heavens being strangely guided here. Then, he was baptized by the strangest and most inauspicious substance, allowing him to become the 10th ancestor. Time continued to reverse. Zhou Tong saw the birth of the 9th ancestor, the 8th ancestor, the 7th ancestor, the 6th ancestor, the 5th ancestor. The birth process of the strange ancestors all appeared before Zhou Tong's eyes, all the way until the 1st ancestor. Before the 1st ancestor, he saw a plateau that had been peaceful since ancient times. He saw a plateau covered in strange and inauspicious substances. Those were bone ashes, the ashes of the three-world coffin lord. As time continued to reverse, Zhou Tong finally saw something familiar, the three-world coffin. However, the copper coffin was lying there crookedly. Every layer of the coffin had been opened, and the urn in the innermost part of the coffin had also been opened. Strange substances spilled out from the urn and filled the air. Going back further, he saw the owner of the three-world coffin cremate himself and bury himself in the three-world coffin. Then, the coffin was laid out here. He even set up some space-time restrictions nearby to prevent anyone from entering this place. So that's how it is. No wonder the strange plateau needed someone to guide it here. So it was the three-world coffin lord's doing. He knew that there was a problem with his cultivation and didn't want to affect the spirits of the heavens, so he secretly buried himself here, Zhou Tong said to himself after watching for a long time. Unfortunately, what he didn't expect was that these strange substances had developed some low-level intelligence of their own. No, to be more precise, they were instincts. Zhou Tong sighed. The eerie substance instinctively wanted to spread out, so after the coffin was set up, an unforeseen event occurred. The coffin overturned, and all the eerie substance was spilled out, fusing into this plateau. When he reached this place, Zhou Tong finally understood many of the strange and inauspicious principles. Their actions were all guided by some instincts produced by the bone ashes, which was why they were extremely united. The more strange substances they had, the more united they were, to the extent where they even had a fearless sacrificial spirit. They previously urged Shi Hao to surrender, feeling like Shi Hao could carry more strange substances and become the most powerful ancestor. This was also because they were influenced by the bone ashes instincts. This type of instincts, if they wanted to truly break through above the immortal emperor level, they needed someone powerful enough to carry them. Zhou Tong already understood everything. However, there is no more chance. Today, everything will come to an end, Zhou Tong casually pointed out. Golden flames surged in midair. The entire strange and inauspicious plateau was completely burned down by raging flames, turned into nothingness. However, all of the power contained within this plateau was also refined by Zhou Tong, turned into nourishment for his advancement. The golden flames didn't give off any pressure, nor did they have the slightest bit of temperature. However, this boundless plateau was burned into nothingness at an unimaginable speed. Wang Long. Zhou Tong's body became brighter and brighter, but it also became more and more illusory. The sixth secret realm within his body even more so disappeared bit by bit, perfectly merging into his body. Zhou Tong also gradually understood the profound mysteries of the level above Immortal Emperor. Above Immortal Emperor, one could roam the heavens. This was the most basic thing, a positive thing. However, this cultivation realm also had a negative aspect, which was the strangeness. Correct, after truly advancing to this realm, Zhou Tong understood that his own existence was already the world, the heavens, and the world's greatest strangeness. Even if it was just a bit of his own evil will, it could create a completely new strangeness, an undying and imperishable strangeness. This cultivation realm. I fear that if I just release a bit of power, it can create more strangeness and inauspiciousness. The more the sixth secret realm disappeared, the more Zhou Tong understood how terrifying this cultivation realm was. It was to the extent where even the three-world coffin lord himself could be considered to have reached this realm. However, in the end, he was still a bit off, only leaving behind the side effects of this cultivation realm. The raging flames continued to burn, and the strange plateau also disappeared in the flames. When the entire plateau was completely incinerated, Zhou Tong's body also disappeared from the world. He disappeared from the world and disappeared from everyone's memories. I seem to have forgotten something important. In the heavens, Yen Ruyu looked at the sky, her eyes carrying a trace of confusion. Zhou Rui, who was fighting against the six strange emperors with all his strength, was also slightly stunned. What's going on? I seem to have forgotten something? Father? No, do I have a father? It seems like something in my heart has been erased? In the middle of battle, Sure Hao seemed to have suddenly sensed something, but no matter how he thought about it, there was no conclusion. His entire being was a bit irritated. The result of his irritation was that his sword radiance swept out, beating the three great primogenitors until they continuously retreated. Blood flowed from their bodies, and their bodies cracked. He's too strong. We need to summon the power of the ancestral land to suppress him. A golden-haired primogenitor suddenly roared, but after roaring, he was a bit stunned. The gray-mist primogenitor on the side looked at him like he was an idiot. Where did the ancestral land come from? Are you stupid? We're all orphans. Where do we have a home? Another primogenitor on the side also stared at him. Seems like it. That golden-haired primogenitor was stunned for a moment, and then he suddenly realized. That's right, where did he have a home? What are they doing? On the other side, Sure Hao also looked at the three great primogenitors as if he was looking at an idiot. However, his attacks were even more berserk, beating the three primogenitors until they continuously coughed out blood. However, in just a short moment, the karma and memories that had originally disappeared suddenly appeared again. Those who had originally forgotten about Zhou Tong all remembered him at this moment. Zhou Tong, it's Zhou Tong. I actually forgot? Yen Ruyu's emotions were complicated. At first, she was excited, but in the end, her heart palpitated, and then she became happy. Father! Zhou Rui released a breath of relief. He actually erased everything in my heart without a sound? How did he do that? At this moment, Sure Hao also remembered Zhou Tong's existence, but what followed was shock. Since ancient times, only he had erased the memories of others. When had he ever been done like this? Ah! Damn it, it's all because of that damn thing. That damn thing actually didn't die? He destroyed the plateau. He destroyed our plateau? Just how did he get in? Without a path limit level expert leading the way, there should be no way he could have entered. However, compared to Sure Hao's shock, the strange primogenitors were hopping mad, their expressions ugly to the extreme. They were extremely alarmed. They knew that they had already lost their advantage. Dong! Right at this moment, heaven and earth trembled. The entire battlefield froze. Zhou Tong walked out from the void step by step. Everyone looked at this scene in shock. You took the final step? Not the half step of Dao's sacrifice, but rather truly exceeding the immortal emperor level? Sure, Hao was the first to react, looking at Zhou Tong in shock. Zhou Tong nodded slightly and said, "Let's deal with the other things first. We'll talk about this later." After speaking, Zhou Tong's eyes swept over the entire battlefield, and then stopped on the 6 great primogenitors' bodies. In my entire life of cultivation, I have always been inextricably linked to the number 10. Of the 10 great primogenitors, I only killed 4. This isn't good at all. Zhou Tong spoke in a leisurely manner. Then, he pointed out, and the final 6 great primogenitors were instantly turned into ashes. Now this is perfection. Everyone in the myriad realms and even the high heavens looked at this scene in shock. The 6 bizarre progenitors had been killed by him with a single finger, as if he was crushing ants. Just how shocking of a scene was this? No one dared to imagine Zhou Tong's current cultivation realm. You really surpassed the immortal emperor level? Yi Fan was stupefied as he watched his opponents turn into ashes. Dao friend Zhou Yu? Without beginning, and Vicious didn't know what to say either. They had to use all of their strength to stall their opponents, yet Zhou Tong directly crushed 6 of them with a single finger. Even though everyone had their doubts, and even though Zhou Tong didn't say too much, from his calm expression, everyone understood that Zhou Tong really did it. This type of performance was undoubtedly far above Dao's sacrifice. Now, with the 6 strange primogenitors completely wiped out, the battle didn't have any suspense or surprises. In the final battle, the strange creatures were wiped out. Chapter 1562. The mountains were undulating, and ancient trees were everywhere. There were even wisps of immortal fog lingering in the mountains and forests. The mountains were bathed in clouds, and all kinds of auspicious beasts roamed about. Between the mountains there were hanging springs and waterfalls, and there were many clear lakes with green lotuses planted on them. One could also see spiritual fish swimming freely in them, full of endless vitality. On the highest mountain peak, there were groups of majestic palaces, located on the mountain's spiritual veins, swallowing the essence of heaven and earth. Dense steam rose like a divine court. There were gardens and herb fields in the courtyard. Every plant was sparkling and translucent, emitting a refreshing fragrance. Any single flower or blade of grass here could trigger a bloody battle in the outside world. This was a pure land outside of all worlds, and it was also a place created by Zhou Tong after he completely surpassed the celestial emperor realm. The medicinal fields, spiritual plants, and other things here were basically created by Zhou Tong out of thin air. However, these things were meaningless to him. To him, they were just decorations. Of course, occasionally, a junior who caught his eye would come over and let him enter the medicinal fields to pick 1 or 2 spiritual plants and leave. At the same time, in the deepest pure land of this palace, Zhou Tong sat quietly on a piece of green stone. Suddenly, he opened his mouth and spat out a small ancient bell. The bell seemed to be made of stone, yet it wasn't stone, and it seemed to be made of metal, yet it wasn't made of metal. The bell was mottled with marks, and every single mark contained the most profound energy in the universe. This bell was Zhou Tong's own warlord bell. After reaching Zhou Tong's current level, the existence of a Dao-confirming weapon was actually meaningless, because at this level, one's existence had already surpassed the heavens and the world, let alone a mere weapon. However, this bell was, after all, once refined by himself with endless effort, so he couldn't bear to leave it just like that. Instead, he spent some time to nurture it. After spending so many years, I finally raised this bell to the highest level, beyond the heavens. Zhou Tong looked at the brand new warlord bell, then reached out and took out an item. It was the reincarnation mirror. Immortal metal, Xian Wang Qi, and primal chaos Qi could no longer be seen from the material of the bell. Everything had been restrained and no strange phenomena appeared. Just like a mirror, it had returned to its original state. At first glance, even immortal emperors would think that the bell and mirror were made from similar materials. Compared with the reincarnation mirror, Zhou Tong's warlord bell looked more ordinary. If he casually threw it into a mountain, even if someone picked it up in the future, they would never recognize it as a treasure. Zhou Tong stroked the reincarnation mirror and said softly, "I'm sure that you're also a supreme treasure beyond the immortal emperor level, but you're still lacking a little." The so-called flaw was that this treasure was only perfect when it allowed one to travel through the heavens through reincarnation. However, if it allowed one's physical body to travel through the heavens directly, it was extremely likely that it would cause some problems in the future. This was especially true when facing some worlds with masters. There was a possibility that it would be discovered. This was one of the flaws of this treasure. Could it be that the person who refined you deliberately left this flaw behind, or could it be that the person who refined you back then didn't reach this step himself? Zhou Tong was also somewhat curious in his heart. However, despite his curiosity, it was difficult to know the truth. This was because ever since Zhou Tong had surpassed the immortal emperor realm and raised the warlord bell to this level, he knew that the previous master of the reincarnation mirror had fallen. If the previous master had deliberately erased his own aura and isolated his karma, it would have been easy for him to fool immortal emperors and cultivators of the Tao sacrificial realm. However, it was basically impossible for him to fool those who had surpassed the immortal emperor realm. It's impossible for someone who has surpassed the immortal emperor, the heavens, and the worlds to die so easily. Therefore, your master must have encountered a realm similar to the master of the three-world coffin. Zhou Tong was in existence of this realm, so he naturally knew that it was almost impossible for a cultivator of this realm to die. Therefore, Zhou Tong was inclined to believe that the master of the reincarnation mirror had not reached the supreme realm, but that his magic treasure had. In the heavens, there was a way to let one's magic treasure surpass one's own. Therefore, the most likely possibility was that the master of the reincarnation mirror had not reached this realm, and only his magic treasure had reached this level. I wonder how many people have reached this realm. Zhou Tong was somewhat yearning. Speaking of which, when I was in the primordial space, was Hong Meng also working hard to reach this realm? So many years have passed, so it's time to see those old friends of mine. With a thought, Zhou Tong had already left his palace, left this world, and returned to the place where the heavenly horned ant's true fate had originated, the primordial space. The primordial golden ranking only has Hong Meng's name now, and a second controller has not been born. However, it makes sense. The original Linli had no foundation for a soul mutation because I repaired his soul-protecting sovereign god artifact. Apart from Linli, who knows how difficult it would be for a second controller to be born. Zhou Tong swept his gaze over and saw the primordial golden ranking in the depths of the primordial space. There was only Hong Meng's name on the enormous ranking. However, this ranking really is a trap. My previous guess wasn't wrong. Zhou Tong looked at the primordial golden ranking, a strange light in his eyes. In the past, the heavenly horned ant's true fate didn't have the ability to discover Hong Meng's tricks, only vaguely feeling that something was wrong. But now, Zhou Tong could clearly see that the most powerful character on the ranking wasn't the Hong character, but rather the Meng character that ran through the entire ranking. Once this ranking was completed, Hong Meng would have the ability to sacrifice everything to complete himself, world destruction, who knows how many lives will be lost. I don't like it, so you can only consider yourself unlucky. Zhou Tong casually pointed a finger at the primordial golden ranking, secretly tampering with Hong Meng's arrangements, causing all those hidden things to disappear. The current primordial golden ranking is the true one. After signing it, there won't be any future problems. Controller of the future, you should thank me, Zhou Tong softly said. At the same time, he disappeared from the primordial space. Sun God World. The entire world had been transformed into a brand new world. 129,600 years had passed. This world's vitality had already dissipated, and then it was reopened. The reopened world was completely different from before. Zhou Tong's eyes turned, looking towards the void above this world. There were pavilions, terraces, and pagodas, a scene of immortals. Tao friend longevity, I trust you have been well since we last met. Zhou Tong walked into this world, looking at the person sitting at the head seat and greeting. After one era, the world will reopen. I didn't expect that the first person I met would be Tao friend. Longevity Heavenly Emperor looked at Zhou Tong, revealing a smile. After Zhou Tong's divine striking stone's true fate left, they could be considered to have found a trace of a path to immortality through the cultivation system of the other world that Zhou Tong brought over, crossing the great calamity of heaven and earth. We haven't met for many years. How about we drink some tea and discuss the Tao? Longevity Heavenly Emperor invited. Alright. World of Longevity. Is this the world of longevity that the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors schemed against? In terms of the vastness of heaven and earth, it doesn't seem to be inferior to the shrouding heaven world at all. It's just that the essence of heaven and earth is a little lacking. Zhou Tong walked alone in this world, admiring the scenery of this world. The 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors had exterminated all the sovereigns in this world, and then fused all the realms into one, turning into a gigantic world, which was the current world of longevity. Zhou Tong walked past the Dragon Island, walked past a few cities, walked past a few cultivation sects. It's time to meet an old friend. When he had seen enough, he turned around and directly walked in a direction. In the final battle of the world of longevity, all the sovereigns had disappeared, and even most of the kings had died. Only Shao Chen, Ku, martial ancestor, Qing Qing, Guqian, and a few others were left. They lived in seclusion in a pure land with verdant hills and limpid waters, silently guarding this world of immortals. However, the instant Zhou Tong appeared, everyone stared at him with their mouths agape and mouths agape. Everyone, how have you been? Zhou Tong greeted everyone. Edosaurus, you didn't die? Martial ancestor exclaimed. You weren't there in the final battle, I thought you were like Little Stone Emperor. Guqian also exclaimed. Where did you go? And why do you look so mysterious now? Shao Chen was also very surprised. It's a long story, but aren't you going to invite me in to have a seat? Haha, that's rude, please. Desolate era world. Jining is still the same as before. Without pressure, there's no motivation. In the endless space, Zhou Tong quietly looked at the desolate, chaotic universe in front of him. He took a single step forward, causing his entire body to enter this universe. Not even Ning, the Lord of the Universe, was able to sense that a Titan had entered their universe. That was, until Zhou Tong came to stand before him. Master Yu. Ji Ning looked at Zhou Tong, who suddenly appeared in front of him in shock. He was already a chaotic universe master, but he didn't notice Zhou Tong approaching? This was his chaotic universe. Even if he was also a chaotic universe master, it was impossible for him to do such a thing in this universe. Zhou Tong, after so many years of ease you relaxed. I came to your side and you only noticed me. Ji Ning said, Master, have you really reached the level of the former black-robed emperor? Can you really reach that level by cultivation? Zhou Tong smiled and said, That's why, initiative is very important. After walking through the familiar world, Zhou Tong once again returned to Shrouding Heaven World and returned to his residence. Where have you been all this time? Just now, it was Rui Er's wedding ceremony. I came to inform you, but you were already gone. We couldn't find you for a long time. Didn't you say you didn't need to cultivate in seclusion? As soon as he returned, Zhou Tong saw Yen Ruyu walking towards him. There was a trace of surprise and dissatisfaction in her eyes. I went to see an old friend. Zhou Tong smiled. Don't lie to me. I asked Yi Fan, No Beginning, Sure How, and the others. They didn't know where you went. What other friends do you have? Yen Ryu mercilessly exposed Zhou Tong's lie. She really couldn't think of any friends Zhou Tong had that she didn't know about. I didn't expect Rui to be married. Before I left, he didn't even have anyone he liked. Zhou Tong was also a bit surprised. His youngest son was already an immortal emperor. An immortal emperor's wedding was definitely the most important event in the entire high heavens. Which family's girl is so lucky to be able to marry into our Zhou family? Zhou Tong asked. Our old friend Yi Fan's descendant. She hasn't cultivated for long, but has already reached the immortal king realm. All the emperors say she has the aptitude of an immortal emperor. Yen Ryu was a bit speechless. This might be the last wedding we can attend for our child. You missed it just like that. The higher one's cultivation, the harder it was to have children. Yen Ryu herself was already a half-immortal emperor, and Zhou Tong was an existence that surpassed immortal emperor. In her opinion, it was already impossible for them to have any more children. That might not be the case. Zhou Tong smiled. After I advanced, I can already change many things. As for children, now is a good time to give it a try. Who knows, it might work. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.